Chapter 480. Under Lan Shanggu's lead, Fang Yan supported Lu Chaoge into Lan Shan's private room. When the old man in sunglasses saw Fang Yan, he raised his eyebrows slightly and his expression tightened. Jiang Junling sensed the strange expression of the old man beside him and glanced at him, then turned his gaze to Fang Yan. Fang Yan supported Lu Chaoge to sit down and greeted the old man in sunglasses sitting opposite him, saying, "I haven't seen you for 3 years. Are you still in good health?" "Very good," the fisherman said. He looked at Fang Yan and said in a sincere and caring voice, "Is your grandfather well?" Fang Yan smiled and said, "If you want to know whether he's well or not, why don't you go to Swallow Dock and have a drink with him?" "I don't dare to go." The fisherman sighed softly. "You know your grandfather's temper. If I go, he'll definitely scold me badly. I've lived for so many years and this is the only face I can use to fool people. If it falls on the ground, how can I pick it up? Also, your grandfather doesn't want to see me right now. Old Fang has always been strong and likes to compare himself to others. He's in his twilight years, but he has to send off a black-haired person. He doesn't feel good about it. Why should I go and stab him?" Fang Yan's expression was solemn and he showed unprecedented respect to the fisherman. He said, "You are my grandfather's old friend of many years. The people who understand him the most are you old friends. My suggestion was too frivolous. Please don't blame me, old man." The fisherman waved his hand and said, "I don't blame you. If I wanted to, I would have done it long ago. We each have our own standpoints and we each serve our own masters, so we won't quarrel when we meet. When I feel like I'm about to leave, I'll go see old Fang and have a good drink with him. I'll listen to him scold me to his heart's content. That's the real joy then." "I hope that day will come later," Fang Yan said with a serious expression. Jiang Junling didn't feel jealous at all when his subordinates were fighting with the enemy. He listened to their conversation with great interest as if he were one of them. Lan Shanggu also felt that the atmosphere was really strange, but he tried his best to keep a low profile and reduce his presence. After summoning the beauty in the palace dress to brew a pot of Longjing tea, she said to Fang Yan, "Young master, I'll go out to entertain them. Shall we have dinner here tonight?" "No need," Fang Yan refused. "If I eat here, you'll have to sit with me. If I busied myself with eating, I felt disrespectful to you, the host. If I keep thinking about what to say to you, I won't be able to eat smoothly. There's still leftovers at home. I'll go back and cook a few dishes. You wouldn't eat out. You don't have to leave, just be a witness." Lan Shanggu nodded and said, "Young master cooking personally, it's very romantic." Fang Yan wouldn't let him leave, so he could only find a corner to sit. Jiang Junling looked at Fang Yan and said with concern, "Just now, the fisherman said something. The white-haired person sending off the black-haired person, this is the greatest tragedy in life. The dead are gone and the living are like this. Nothing is more sad than to ruin one's life." Fang Yan's eyes trembled slightly as he looked at Jiang Junling and said, "This is indeed a sad and despairing matter. You clearly feel that you can control everything, but you can only watch as your loved ones die in front of you. If it's possible, I hope that this will only happen once in my life. What I've experienced has been experienced by others before, and in the future there will be people who will experience it. If it's not someone else, it will be you. Fate is really a mysterious thing. Once the sickle in the hand of the Grim Reaper points at you, you can't run or hide. So, living like this is only one aspect. The key is to be strong, to accumulate virtue and do more good while you're alive. If you do too many bad things, the Grim Reaper sickle will naturally hook onto your neck." Fang Yan used his own experience to point the spearhead at Jiang Junling. "Those who do too much evil will bring about their own destruction. What happened to me will also happen to others. This kind of tragedy will never be the last time it happens. If the Jiang family still doesn't know how to stop and keep doing such immoral things, the Grim Reaper sickle will definitely stretch onto their necks. At that time, even if you regret it, it will be too late." Jiang Junling nodded in agreement and said, "That makes sense. Filial piety, loyalty, trust, propriety, justice, integrity and shame. If any of them are missing, it will be difficult to support a person. Accumulate virtue, do more good and do less bad things, then there will be peace at home and abroad." Jiang Junling retorted bluntly. The hidden meaning in his words was that if Fang Yan hadn't done too many bad things, no one in his family would have died tragically. If he still acted willfully and recklessly this time, then there would be no peace at home and abroad. Fang Yan was threatening Jiang Junling and Jiang Junling was also threatening Fang Yan. As soon as they came into contact, swords were drawn. Lan Shanggu wished he could stick his head into his pants. Once again he regretted sitting here. Why didn't he pretend to be dead and go to the hospital? Why didn't he say that he needed to change sanitary pads when he was on his period? Even if he was beaten twice on the head, it would still be much more relaxing and enjoyable than sitting here and watching Fang Yan and Jiang Junling stab each other. Lan Shanggu felt that he was really too pitiful. Fang Yan held a cup of Longjing tea in his hand, looked at Jiang Junling and said, "If I were you, I would definitely not be stupid enough to provoke a powerful opponent at this time." Jiang Junling calmly looked at Fang Yan and said, "When friends come there is good wine, when enemies come there is a hammer. Friend or enemy I know very well." Fang Yan raised his hand and splashed the cup of Longjing tea at Jiang Junling, who was sitting opposite him. Whoosh! The tea was like an arrow, piercing toward Jiang Junling's face. The old man in shades moved like a goshawk. With a wave of his wide sleeves, the cup of Longjing tea was taken away without a drop of rain. From beginning to end, the General Ling sat steadily in his original position, not showing any signs of panic or anger. He was like an emotionless stone Buddha. The old man in shades was on guard, but Fang Yan didn't make any further moves. Jiang Junling looked at Fang Yan and said, "This kind of insult has no meaning. If even you say it's an insult, then it means that this kind of behavior will make you unhappy. I'm not a very promising person, but if I can make someone I don't like a little unhappy, I'll be very happy," Fang Yan said with a smile. "Tell me honestly, do you feel a little unhappy in your heart?" Jiang Junling nodded honestly and said, "It's not just a little unhappy, it's very unhappy. No one has ever dared to pour tea on the face of a member of the general's family. In the eyes of the elderly, this kind of insult is very serious, and it must be paid with blood. In other words, I'll have to be more careful when I go out in the future? Just take it as a friendly reminder." Jiang Junling looked at Fang Yan and said, "I sincerely wish for your family to be safe." Hearing Jiang Junling's threat again, Fang Yan couldn't help but laugh and said, "You must have heard of this saying, the barefooted are not afraid of those who wear shoes. We've experienced it before, so we know how painful it is to lose a loved one. After knowing it, we hope that this feeling won't befall us again but befall others. For example, those people who want to kill us. Jiang Junling, do you believe it? I'm really not afraid of tearing your neck off." When Fang Yan said this last sentence, the smile on his face had disappeared, and his voice was devoid of any emotion. His clear eyes became deep and a frightening scarlet red appeared in his pupils. At this moment Fang Yan was filled with killing intent, and he was as violent as a general who had just slaughtered thousands of enemy soldiers on the battlefield. Even the heart of grand mystery couldn't suppress such killing intent. Even Laozi's mind-clearing incantation couldn't get rid of such killing intent. The expression of the old man in sunglasses changed again, and he couldn't help but sit up, moving sideways toward Jiang Junling. This was to prevent Fang Yan's sudden attack from catching him off guard. The old man in sunglasses looked at Fang Yan and said angrily, "How did you get the smell of blood from practicing the Fang Tai Chi? In the past your grandfather wrote to me, praising you as a rare martial arts prodigy. You've indeed lived up to expectations, comprehending the heart of Tai Chi at such a young age. Not only the Fang family but also the famous Tai Chi clans all agree that you're the master of Tai Chi's resurgence. But look at what you're doing now. What are you practicing? You're going to lead Tai Chi down the wrong path." Fang Yan knew that the old man in sunglasses was really doing this for his own good. Old people at their age still had a strong sense of greatness, such as the resurgence of their country and culture. Fang Yan had grown up in such a family, so he had subtly inherited such emotional cognition. The red in Fang Yan's eyes slowly disappeared, and the hostility in his heart dissipated. Only then was he able to speak to the old man in sunglasses in a normal tone. He said, "I know that the way I practice is wrong and I also know that I'm going down the wrong path. But I really have no other choice. My heart is full of hatred and I'm full of killing intent. If I don't vent these feelings, I think I'll never be able to return to the right path. In 3 years I haven't made any progress in my martial arts and I haven't mastered my chi. Grandfather is also very worried for me and he has asked me countless times to let go of the knot in my heart and let go of the hatred. But how can I let go? How can I let go? The knot in my heart isn't to let go but to untie it. The hatred isn't to let go but to have an eye for an eye." Fang Yan opened his mouth and smiled at Zhang Junling, saying, "That's why I came out. I used my own method to untie the knot in my heart and let go of the hatred. Zhang Junling, in the future when I'm good at martial arts, you'll definitely be my greatest benefactor." "I can't bear it," Zhang Junling said with a serious expression. At this moment in his heart, Fang Yan was like a rabid dog that could pounce and bite someone at any time. He somewhat regretted coming to Huaqing at this time. Chapter 481. If he won it would be natural, but if he lost he would lose face. This was Zhang Junling's current situation, just like last time. He had already thought of this question. Why did he still come to Flower City? Because he thought that he would definitely win this time. There was no possibility of losing at all. Why are you regretting it now? Zhang Junling suddenly thought of this question. With his intelligence he quickly came up with an answer that was 99% true. Because he was afraid. He was afraid that he wouldn't win, afraid that he would lose again. Facing Fang Yan, who was currently like a mad dog, Zhang Junling's strong heart loosened a little. Thinking that he was actually afraid, Zhang Junling became truly angry. This anger had nothing to do with others, but his disappointment in himself. He was growing and so was Fang Yan. This was something he had already guessed long ago. He was no longer the normal Fang Yan, but so what? The big picture is in the hands of the heavens and I am the one who succeeds. Compared to himself, how many trump cards does he have? This kind of negative emotion only lasted for a fleeting moment before it once again turned into a modest, proud, confident and powerful General Ling. Zhang Junling looked at Fang Yan and said, "Since we've known each other for a long time, I wish you success in martial arts. However, I think we've both overlooked the real purpose of this meeting. We're here to trade, aren't we?" "Can't be overlooked," Fang Yan smiled and said. He held Lu Chaoga's hand and said, "I brought the victim to the negotiation site to let you all feel the brutality and viciousness of those bandits. Look, how could they be so heartless as to lay their hands on such a beautiful and charming little woman?" Everyone present was speechless. Who the hell would look at whether the hostage was a beautiful woman before kidnapping? The main thing was to see how much profit they could get from the hostage, alright? Fang Yan looked at Lan Shanggu and said, "Lan Shanggu, if it were you, would you kidnap such a beautiful woman and cut off her hair to paint with her scalp?" Lan Shanggu was shocked and said, "Young master, don't joke with me like this. I am timid. I am a legitimate businessman in Lauren Valley. I don't do anything illegal. That wouldn't last long and it would be easy for him to fall into the ditch. Your whole body stinks. I'm afraid you've lost your life." Only now did Zhang Junling, Lan Shanggu, and the others learn about the details of the kidnapping. He thought to himself that Feng Xing and Qiang Longtan, these two old freaks, were really capable of doing anything. They had also done the extremely cruel thing of painting on their scalps. No wonder Fang Yan had something on them that could be used to make them beg for death. Since Fang Yan hated Feng Xing and Qiang Longtan so much, today's negotiation was naturally to cut off a piece of flesh from Zhang Junling. However, he didn't know if Zhang Junling would give in or not. If Zhang Junling wasn't willing to pay up, the fight between the two would become heated and protracted. Thinking of his position between the two, Lan Shanggu wanted to cry but had no tears. Who did he offend? Zhang Junling's eyes turned cold and said, "Don't use groundless things to confuse people. People will laugh at you if this gets out." Zhang Junling's eyes moved to Lu Chaoga's face and praised, "Miss Lu's hairstyle is very beautiful today. It complements your temperament, simple and elegant." Zhang Junling countered Fang Yan's words with the truth. "Didn't you say that they cut off Lu Chaoga's hair to paint on her scalp?" Lu Chaoga's hair was still there, which proved that every attack on their character was a lie. Fang Yan surely understood the meaning of Zhang Junling's words. He said, "Groundless things? If I was a little bit later, you wouldn't have the chance to praise Miss Lu's hairstyle and temperament today." Fang Yan raised Lu Chaoga's injured hand and said, "This dagger pierced through her palm. Even if it healed, an ugly scar would still be left on the back of her hand." Fang Yan then untied the silk scarf that was tied around Lu Chaoga's neck to cover those scars, looked at Zhang Junling and said, "If I hadn't grabbed that dagger in time, Feng Xing's throat would have already been cut." The look in Lan Shanggu's eyes turned complicated. He finally understood the reason why Fang Yan asked him to stay. At the beginning he thought that Fang Yan asked him to stay on the scene to be a buffer, in case he and Zhang Junling started a fight without saying a word. If that happened, the negotiation wouldn't go on. When he saw Fang Yan pick up the teacup in front of him and pour it towards Jiang Junling's face, he knew that he was wrong. Fang Yan didn't mean to negotiate with Jiang Junling at all. He was a madman who wouldn't even care about poking a hole in the sky. He didn't care about the power of the Jiang clan at all. Now he understood that Fang Yan asked him to be a witness. To witness the scars on Lu Chaoga's body, and also to prove that Qiang Longtan and Jiang Fengxing were the murderers behind the kidnapping of Lu Chaoga. Before, when Fang Yan said this, some people didn't believe him. Some people even thought that this was a drama directed and acted by Fang Yan himself. He was vicious and merciless, and even the people closest to him were his pawns. Now that Fang Yan showed up with Lu Chaoga, the meaning of his words was clear. These people were the ones who kidnapped Jiang Fengxing and Qiang Longtan. Every word he said was true. Otherwise, would Fang Yan really cut Lu Chaoga's neck a few times? Or would he stab the back of Lu Chaoga's hand with a knife? Fang Yan wanted to borrow his eyes and mouth. He wanted to spread what he saw with his own eyes, to let the people of Huaqing know that Fang Yan wasn't as evil and treacherous as they thought. Most importantly, Fang Yan wanted those who followed him or had the intention to follow him to know that his character was not as bad as they thought or what the rumors said. Every word and action of this guy had a hidden meaning. He really couldn't be underestimated. As expected, if Lan Shanggu could think of it, Jiang Junling could think of it in advance. Jiang Junling glanced at Lan Shanggu thoughtfully and said, "One side of the story you can't take it seriously. If you really want to get justice for Miss Lu, why don't you send my fourth uncle and Uncle Jiang here, and let the three parties confront each other face to face? What's wrong is wrong and what's right is right after all. No matter how good their acting skills are, how can they hide from the eyes of everyone here? In this way, even if they spread the word to the outside, they would have a more straightforward and clear understanding. Gu, don't you think so?" Lan Shanggu laughed and said, "What's right is right after all, and what's wrong is wrong after all. I believe the truth will come to light one day. As long as people are still alive, the truth will never disappear." Jiang Junling smiled faintly. He knew that Lan Shanggu would give an answer that was biased towards Fang Yan's side. But whether or not to say it was very important. When Lan Shanggu spread the word, he still had to consider the attitude of the Jiang family on this matter. "I think so too," Fang Yan said. "A country has its laws and a family has its rules. If they break the law, they will naturally be handed over to the authorities to deal with. Oh right, when I came I already sent those bandits to the police station. They are probably being interrogated now, right?" Jiang Junling smiled without saying anything. He said, "Fang Yan, why can't we just get to the point? Why waste your time and mine like this? You don't trust me to send them to the police station?" "Of course," Jiang Junling said. "If you did, I would admire your selflessness." Fang Yan smiled shyly and said, "You guessed it right. I really can't bear to send them to the police station. Jiang Fengxing is a big shot in the Jiang family. If he was sent to the police station as a kidnapper, the Jiang family's reputation would probably fall to the ground and be covered in dust, right? You won't get any compensation either. Between the two of us, who will suffer a greater loss? So, when Jiang Shangxin came to my house to ask for my help, I agreed to give you a chance. I have already stated the conditions. You can only do two things. Accept it or you have no choice but to accept it." "I want to confirm a few things," Jiang Junling said. "First, are they still alive?" "Them? Which one?" "My fourth uncle Jiang Fengxing and Jiang Zhuliu's father Qiang Longtan. Are they still alive?" "Oh, they tied him up and threw him into the vast ocean. When I tried my best to find him, I only saw Jiang Fengxing and a few of his helpers. After a fierce fight, I finally subdued them. I've never seen the dragon pool before, but I've never seen it before. I don't know if they were thrown into the deep sea by your fourth uncle because they couldn't split the loot evenly. I don't know how to swim. Even if I could, I wouldn't jump into the sea to look for them. What does his life have to do with me, right?" Lan Shanggu's hand trembled slightly as he held the teacup in his hand. Qiang Longtan was already dead? After Jiang Zhuliu's wedding, the Jiang family's reputation had been trampled into the abyss by Fang Yan. However, no one dared to underestimate the Jiang family. Because the Jiang family had Qiang Longtan, and because the Jiang family had the backing of the Jiang family. Who could guarantee that the Jiang family wouldn't be able to rise again? If Qiang Longtan was also dead with just Jiang Zhulu, would he be able to carry the Jiang family's banner? Jiang Junling nodded and said, "In other words, Qiang Longtan is dead?" I said, "I don't know. The Jiang family still has to bear the crime of killing Qiang Long Tan. You don't have to bear it. Fang Yan said confidently. If you don't want to bear it, then let someone else bear it. I don't like to force people. If that's the case. Jiang Junling looked at Fang Yan and said, I think your price is too high. We can only give you 10% of Long Tu Group's shares at most. This is the highest price we can offer after discussing with Jiang Zhulu. Fang Yan helped Lu Chaoge up and said, as the victim's family, we refuse to accept such a humiliating price. Negotiation ends here. Before he finished, he was already holding Lu Chaoge's hand and walking towards the door of the private room. Chapter 482. Negotiations. Negotiations of course should be negotiated first. They haven't even had a proper negotiation and they've already been sentenced to death. Who would want to do business with such a person? Do they have any morals? Do they have any professionalism? Do they have any negotiating spirit? Jiang Junling knew that Fang Yan was difficult to deal with, but he really didn't expect him to get up and leave as soon as he stated his conditions. What kind of insulting price was that? Who the hell was insulting who? Why do I feel like I'm being insulted too? Is he really not afraid that this negotiation will collapse? Or does he think that he has nothing to fear just because he has a hostage in his hand, and that he will definitely win this war? Seeing Fang Yan being so unscrupulous and not giving him any face, Jiang Junling's expression couldn't help but become even more hostile. He always thought that his cultivation was profound and his endurance was better than others. But every time he met Fang Yan he would break through and he really wanted to roll up his sleeves and fight 300 rounds with him regardless of his identity and image. He looked at Fang Yan's back and said aloud, I think you may not understand some things. Do you know how much 10% of Long Tu Group's shares are worth? With the good performance of the energy stocks in the market, its total market value will not be much lower than the current Chaoyan technology. How much can you get in Chaoyan? Can't be more than 10%, right? Fang Yan suddenly turned around and stared at Jiang Junling. In your heart you think that 10% of Long Tu Group's shares is already a lot, an astronomical number, enough to compensate for all our losses, but you definitely don't know what Lu Chaoge means to me. Fang Yan held Lu Chaoge's hand and said in a deep voice, she is my friend, my family, Chaoyan's soul and everything. Without her, Chaoyan technology would not exist at all. I don't even have the chance to sit here and talk to you as equals. Such an important person was kidnapped by the Jiang family. Jiang Junling frowned and said, she was not kidnapped by the Jiang family, please watch your words. Is Jiang Fengxing not a member of the Jiang family? Didn't you just call him fourth uncle? Jiang Fengxing is a member of the Jiang family and he is indeed my fourth uncle. However, the Jiang family belongs to all members of the Jiang family, not just one person. Other than two people, no one else can stand out and say that they represent the Jiang family. Besides, the truth is still unclear. Before I see fourth uncle, I don't believe that the Jiang family kidnapped Miss Lu Chaoge. If that's the case, Fang Yan sneered. Why are you negotiating with me? I'll hand them over directly to the police station. You can bring your family to the police station to visit them and understand what happened. Isn't that easy for you? Why did you come to my house and beg me to negotiate? If you don't do anything against your conscience, you won't be afraid of ghosts knocking on your door. But if you've done too many things against your conscience, even the slightest movement outside will make you paranoid and restless? Fang Yan, you are testing my patience. Jiang Junling, don't put on a high and mighty face in front of me. If I cared about your identity, I wouldn't have beaten you black and blue 3 years ago. What's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. You've done wrong, so you have to receive the punishment you deserve. Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because you have a special identity. You can do it with others but not with me. As the victim's family, we have the final say on whether we are satisfied with the compensation. Not you, the perpetrator, decide. Now I can tell you very clearly that I am very dissatisfied with this result. General Ling took a sip of tea from his teacup and said, 20%. 30%, Fang Yan said. I've already stated the conditions. Only by reaching this condition will we feel a little more balanced. Although I think it still can't compare to the losses we've suffered. Long Tu Group's future valuation is far from Chaoyan technology. Can 30% of Long Tu Group's shares be compared to all of Chaoyan Technology's shares? Everyone knows that if something happens to Lu Chaoge in this kidnapping incident, Chaoyan Technology will suffer a fatal blow. Don't you feel that you've taken advantage of me by stating such a merciful condition? Jiang Junling pondered for a moment and said, Fine. 30%. I promise you. But the condition is that you let her go first. Only after you let her go will I ask someone to transfer the shares of Longtu Group to you. Fang Yan took Lu Chaoga's hand and sat back down. He said, That's not a problem. Jiang Junling looked at Fang Yan and asked, Where do we pick her up? South Sea, Fang Yan said. Rumble. The off-road vehicle's engine roared and the vehicle bounced up and down, continuously conquering one protrusion or pit after another. This was an undeveloped road that extended infinitely along the coastline of Huaqing. It was sparsely populated and it was not conducive to driving. Jiang Zhulu was used to sitting in luxury cars with excellent shock absorption. His body was bounced up and down again, repeating this process over and over again. It made him feel as if his internal organs were being moved. He resisted the nausea and the urge to lie by the window and vomit to his heart's content. He tried his best to look calm and composed as if nothing had happened. At this time, Jiang Zhuliu's heart was especially sensitive, and he needed other people's respect and approval even more. The driver was an experienced driver. His movements were skilled and agile. Even on such a difficult road he could still drive the car at high speed, which was enough to show his superb skills. Sitting in the front passenger seat was a middle-aged man in a black suit. When they first met, he introduced himself as Eagle King, and was the main person in charge of searching for the target in the team. Sitting side by side with Jiang Zhulu were two big shots of the martial arts world. One was the Tai saber god Li Wanfu. It was said that his Tai saber was superb and he could use 13 sabers at most. As the leader of the Lovers' School, he had a great reputation. The other big shot was the Dragon Master Bao Sherpa, who had fought with Fang Yan in the 10-feet abyss and was beaten into a coma by Fang Yan. In the past, Jiang Zhulu did not have much of a good impression and understanding of these martial arts figures. Now that it was a society governed by law, no matter how good their martial arts were, would they come and beat him up for no reason? Only now did Jiang Zhulu gradually realize the importance of these people. For example, he was here to pick up Jiang Fingxing and his father. If it were not for these powerful people accompanying him, he would not have the courage to come to such a place to pick them up alone. Li Wanfu and Bao Sherpa were sitting in the car with their eyes closed, as if they had fallen asleep. Their bodies were moving up and down with the bumps of the car, but there was nothing strange on their faces. Their bodies were integrated with the car, going up and down at the same time with ease. Screech! The car suddenly braked and stopped at the edge of a high cliff. Eagle King was the first to get out of the car. He glanced at the satellite positioning system on his wrist and said, The agreed place for the transaction is here. Jiang Zhulu opened the car door and got out. He really could not stand the stuffy air in the car. He took in big mouthfuls of the salty and humid sea air, which made his body feel slightly better. The feeling of vomiting that was about to gush up to the corner of his mouth disappeared, allowing him to save some face. Jiang Zhulu walked to Eagle King's side and looked at the vast deep blue sea. He said, Where are they? Why don't I see anything? There are still 5 minutes left, Eagle King said. We arrived 5 minutes earlier than the agreed time. Jiang Zhuliu's phone rang in his pocket. He glanced at the caller ID and saw that it was Jiang Junling. He answered the phone and said, Young master, we have arrived at the destination, but we haven't seen fourth uncle and the others yet. Be careful, Jiang Junling said and hung up the phone. As soon as the call ended, a cruise ship sailed over the sea. Everyone was shocked. The people they had been waiting for had finally arrived. Eagle King took the lead and walked toward the coastline under the cliff, and Jiang Zhulu followed closely behind. Li Wanfu and Bao Sherpa also got off the ship and followed behind Jiang Zhulu, one in front and one on the right. The purpose of their trip was to ensure Jiang Zhuliu's personal safety. The cruise ship arrived in the blink of an eye and anchored at the edge of the stone bridge, which seemed to have been in disrepair and had been corroded beyond recognition by the seawater. A thin man jumped off the ship and tied the rope in his hand to the pillar of the stone bridge. Then he stood at the bridgehead and coldly waited for Jiang Zhulu and the others to arrive. Jiang Zhulu rushed to the front and asked the thin man, Where are they? On the ship, Snake Lord said. I want to go up and take a look, Jiang Zhulu said. Make the deal first. Snake Lord stood in the middle of the stone bridge, not letting them go over. I don't see them. How can I make the deal? Zhang Zhulu said unwillingly. The Serpent King whistled, following which a man in black clothes dragged Feng Xing onto the deck. The man in black took off the blindfold from Feng Xing's head and pulled out the black cloth from his mouth. After that, Feng Xing immediately started yelling out, "Zhulu, help me! Zhulu, help me!" "Where are the others?" Zhang Zhulu asked. "No one else," Snake Lord said with a smile. "Don't go too far. You took my father away as well." "We don't see your father," Snake Lord said. "Maybe he was thrown into the sea to feed the sharks?" He felt that these rich people were very strange. On the surface they seemed to be loyal and affectionate, but secretly they were thieves and prostitutes. What couldn't they do? "I'll kill you." Zhang Zhuliu's eyes were blood red, and he looked like he wanted to kill Snake Lord. Eagle Eye rushed in front of Zhang Zhulu and said, "Let's make the deal first." Eagle Eye looked at Snake Lord and said, "Give him to me. The boss will sign the transfer of shares." Snake Lord smiled and shook his head. "The more I meet people, the more I feel that they are not as loyal and reliable as my little snakes. What if you don't sign after I give him to you? Let your boss sign first, then this ship and the people on it are all yours." Chapter 483. Eagle King sneered, his eyes as sharp as a vulture's. "You have your considerations, we also have our concerns. What if we sign it but you don't give it to us?" "That is indeed a problem." Snake Lord thought about it seriously. "This problem is too profound, my IQ is low, I really can't think of a good solution. How about we cancel today's deal?" After saying that, Snake Lord jumped towards the cruise ship behind him. Eagle King's body trembled in anger. "What kind of attitude is this bastard? Do we need to beg you to make a deal? Want to leave?" Li Wanfu shouted, his body like a rock spreading its wings, leaping into the air. His hands turned into eagle claws, swiftly grabbing towards Snake Lord's nape. Vajra subduing Dragon Claw. This was an inner sect technique of the Mandarin Duck sect, extremely powerful. The wind howled, the energy was like a knife. Li Wanfu's hands were faintly red. It was the phenomenon of internal combustion when he used his internal energy to the extreme. With his internal energy cultivation, if he really did grab a human body, it would be light injuries and broken bones, serious cases would be death on the spot. Li Wanfu had a violent temper, it was very difficult to escape unscathed from his hands. More or less, a piece of flesh or some other body part would be left. Even if it was just a touch of energy, Snake Lord already felt a burning pain on his back. He was in midair, his strength exhausted. It was too late to turn around. But he didn't need to. His mouth let out a hurried flute sound. A small golden snake came out of his trench coat, hissing and pouncing towards Li Wanfu, who was full of murderous intent. "Bastard!" Li Wanfu was furious. He had been famous for a long time, his Tai saber was extremely powerful, he rarely met an opponent. Usually he lived like a prince, no one dared to touch him. He didn't expect a small snake to be so presumptuous in front of him. With a flick of his wrist, a small golden knife jumped into his hand. With a flash of golden light, the small golden snake screamed and was cut in half. After cutting the golden snake, Li Wanfu's speed didn't slow down, his saber momentum didn't stop, stabbing towards Snake Lord's back again. Whoosh! The Snake Lord suddenly turned around and threw a handful of white powder at Li Wanfu. Whoosh! Li Wanfu quickly withdrew his body and the goshawk turned into a sparrow. His dantian exerted force once more and his body quickly retreated. Quang quang quang! Li Wanfu's body once again landed on the broken bridge. Because the force of his forward charge was too strong, he retreated a little hurriedly. His body staggered back a few steps before he managed to steady himself. The two energies collided and clashed in his body, and a sweet taste of blood rushed into his throat. He pursed his lips and swallowed it back down. Bao Shishir was enraged. As he was about to leap up and chase after Jiang Fengxing, the Snake Lord had already grabbed Jiang Fengxing's neck. Bao Shishir snorted, but he could only stare at the Snake Lord coldly. "Since we can't make a deal, let's part ways here," Snake Sovereign said with a smile. He stared at Li Wanfu, Bao Shishir and the others and shouted, "Set sail." Kacha! The cruise ship began to move. The Snake Lord flicked his sleeve and a silver light flashed. The rope tied to the stone pillar of the broken bridge was cut into two pieces. One end was still tied to the stone pillar, while the other was swaying in the wind. "Wait!" Zhang Zhulu anxiously shouted. "Let me make a call." Since it was something that Jiang Junling and Fang Yan had already discussed, it meant that they had already made a decision. What he needed to do now was to ensure the smooth success of this deal. Go ahead, Snake Lord said. Jiang Zhulu dialed Jiang Junling's number and said, Young master, I saw fourth uncle but I didn't see my father. Zhulu, I already know about this. I didn't tell you because I wasn't sure yet, so I'm leaving this deal to you. I hope you can see it with your own eyes. Jiang Junling comforted him in a soft voice. No matter how bad the situation is, we're already mentally prepared. What others owe us, they will eventually pay us back. I understand, Jiang Junling said. The deal is in progress. They want young master to sign first. Give me 1 minute, Jiang Junling said. Jiang Zhulu hung up again and waited patiently. The cruise ship's engine roared, but it didn't start to leave. In less than a minute, Snake Lord received the message. He let go of Jiang Fingxing and said, The deal is done. This ship and the people on it are all yours. After that, he dashed towards the other side of the ship. The people on the other side had already prepared a rubber boat. As soon as Snake Lord jumped on it, the rubber boat split the water and rushed towards the distant deep sea. Eagle King was the first to jump on the boat and threw the cruise ship's rope to them. Li Wanfu grabbed the rope and fastened it to the pillar of the broken bridge again. Li Wanfu and Bao Shi also got on the boat. One went to check the cabin to make sure the cruise ship was safe. The other went to the captain's room to check the direction of the cruise ship. Jiang Zhulu was the last to get on the boat. After rushing to the deck, he untied Jiang Fingxing and asked anxiously, Dad, how do you feel? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? I'm fine, Jiang Fingxing said weakly. If Jiang Zhulu didn't hold him up, he wouldn't have been able to stand at all. These days, every day felt like a year to him. Both his mind and body had suffered unimaginable torture. Where's my dad? Have you seen my dad? Jiang Fingxing shook his head and said, I don't know. We were separated on the ship. When I woke up, Dragon Pool was already gone. I never saw him again. Jiang Zhuliu's eyes were red. He yelled towards the cabin, Mr. Bao, Mr. Li, have you seen my dad? No, Bao Shi said as he walked out. No, Li Wanfu yelled from the cockpit. There's really nothing left, Jiang Zhulu said hoarsely. There's really nothing left. He had already guessed that something bad had happened to his father, but he still had a glimmer of hope. Now that he saw Jiang Fingxing, who had disappeared with his father, but there was no trace of his father, he knew that his father was gone for good. He would never come back. Jiang Fingxing was also very sad. He put his hand on Jiang Zhuliu's shoulder and comforted him. Zhulu, don't think too much. Maybe your father has already been rescued, or maybe he's been hidden by them. They're going to ask us for more benefits. Your father is not here. You are the pillar of the Jiang family. You have to take care of yourself. Don't let your body fall. I understand. Jiang Zhulu said with a hideous expression and blood-red eyes. I'm mentally prepared. That's good, Jiang Fingxing said tiredly. Let's go home. Let's go back. I don't want to stay in this damn place for one more second. Dad, you can't go back, Jiang Zhulu said in a low voice. What did you say? Jiang Fingxing's body shook. He vigilantly stared at Jiang Zhulu. He wanted to push Jiang Zhulu away and stand alone, but his legs were shaking. He couldn't bear the weight of his body at all. Jiang Zhuliu's eyes became as fierce as a wolf's. He lowered his voice and said, Someone doesn't want you to go back. Jiang Zhulu raised a syringe that he had prepared earlier and suddenly pierced it towards Jiang Fingxing's heart. Jiang Fingxing felt as if he had been hit by a heavy blow. He wanted to say something, but his mouth was trembling and he couldn't say anything. His body twitched and a large amount of foam came out of his mouth. His body softly fell into Jiang Zhuliu's arms. How good it would be if you died earlier, Jiang Zhulu said with a hideous smile. Jiang Fingxing couldn't hear his curses anymore, because his heart had stopped beating. Dad, Jiang Zhulu cried out. Dad, what's wrong? Dad, don't scare me, help. After 3 rounds of tea, Fang Yan's phone on the table finally rang. Fang Yan took the phone and glanced at it. He looked at Jiang Junling, who was sitting opposite him, and said, Congratulations on our successful transaction. Jiang Junling looked at Fang Yan and said, Didn't we already have a successful transaction after you got the share transfer contract? At that time, it only represented that I got the Long2 Group's shares. Fang Yan smiled and said, Only by receiving this message can my people leave safely. You're a good boss who knows how to care for your subordinates. Jiang Junling smiled faintly. But you're not a good man who knows how to love your family. Fang Yan said mockingly, Jiang Fengxing probably won't have a chance to go ashore anymore, right? Jiang Junling's expression was firm. He said, I don't understand what you mean. Whether it's you or the Jiang family, you won't allow Jiang Fengxing, a man who brought shame to the Jiang family, to come home, right? Jiang Junling lowered his head and drank his tea. He said calmly, Fourth uncle is a member of the Jiang family, my family. Of course we want him to come home. But the sea is stormy. If something happens to him, what else can we do other than grieve? Fang Yan said with a face full of mockery, Stormy sea? Not only is the sea stormy, but it's also dangerous on land. Jiang Junling raised his head and looked at Fang Yan. His eyes narrowed and he asked in a deep voice, What are you trying to say? As a teacher, I won't say things like watching is my territory. If you're a dragon, you have to coil up. If you're a tiger, you have to squat down. That's meaningless and makes me sound very vulgar. As a man with manners, I won't say things like watching's traffic is bad and you have to be careful when crossing the road. That's a strong threat. But what I want to tell you is that from this moment on, watching has entered the era of Fang Yan. Fang Yan smiled as he looked at Jiang Junling. He said, Whether you like it or not, whether you accept it or not. In watching, you'd better keep a low profile. I don't like people with high profiles. Except myself. Before Fang Yan left the room, he added. Chapter 484. I think those who like to use money or power to oppress people are nouveau riche. Like those who become rich overnight, their mentality is unbalanced and it is difficult to control their inflated ego, causing them to do things that are irrational and have no bottom line. Fang Yan explained to Lu Chaoge with a serious face, I won't do such a thing. It's embarrassing. Lu Chaoge didn't answer. Because she didn't know how to answer this question. Do I have money? Fang Yan looked at Lu Chaoge and asked. Yes, Lu Chaoge replied. Now Fang Yan was really rich, a lot of money. Perhaps even he himself didn't know how much profit Chaoyan Technologies shares would bring him every day. Moreover, with Chaoyan Technologies' current valuation of tens of billions of dollars, if he was willing to sell his part of the shares, he could immediately become one of the billionaires in Wuxia. As long as he was willing, he could be on the Forbes rich list in minutes. Of course, most of the rich people on the list were actually unwilling to be on it. Do I have power? Fang Yan asked. Yes. Lu Chaoge nodded again. With the Rubik's Cube as the core and Chaoyan Technology as the carrier, Lu Chaoge helped Fang Yan create an alliance that gathered the interests of many parties. Whether it was the Lu family represented by Lu Shu or the Lan family represented by Lan Shan, they all had to surround Fang Yan and show their loyalty as much as possible. Not to mention, there was the unwavering support of the little girl from the Qin family. Now Fang Yan could be described with two words. Monstrous power. I have money and power. Fang Yan looked at Lu Chaoge's beautiful eyes and said confidently, and in a situation where we are completely in the right, when I was facing Jiang Junling, wasn't my posture very elegant? Lu Chaoge thought about it and said with some embarrassment, It was all right. Was my tone very calm? Sort of. I didn't lose my temper with him, I didn't make a scene with him, I didn't jump up and gesture at his mother. Pour the tea on him, Lu Chaoge said. Fang Yan's expression stiffened, and then a puzzled look appeared on his face as he asked, Really? Have I ever done such a thing? Yes. This time Lu Chaoge nodded firmly. I remember now. I did do something like that. Fang Yan grinned. You saw it too. At that time Jiang Junling was a little nervous when he faced me, so there was a layer of sweat on his face. I was worried that he was hot, so I wanted to help him cool down. I didn't expect the old man beside him to be even more greedy. He actually stretched out his sleeve and took the cup of tea away. Maybe old people are more afraid of heat. If you really want to explain it like that. The corner of Lu Chaoge's mouth slightly curled up, and there was a faint smile on her face as she said, Then I choose to believe you. Fang Yan also smiled. His smile was clean and pure. I am now a noble, Fang Yan said. Yes. Lu Chaoge bowed slightly to Fang Yan and said, Sir Fang Yan, will you still cook and wash the dishes tonight? The two of them looked at each other and laughed unrestrainedly. They had been suppressed for too long and they had been held hostage by hatred for too long. Every word was like a knife, and every gaze was hidden with murderous intent. Lu Chaoga hated the people around him who coveted the Rubik's Cube and could endanger his life at any time. Fang Yan hated the killers who took away his life and the joy of his family. At this moment they were smiling from the bottom of their hearts. There was no hatred, no murderous intent, only a feeling of complete relaxation in both body and mind. Lu Chaoga reached out and held Fang Yan's hand. She looked straight into Fang Yan's smiling eyes and said softly, "Fang Yan, I like you like this. You don't know when I saw you again 3 years later how scary your gaze was. At that time my hands and feet were cold as if I was being stared at by a terrifying monster. Although it was just a glance and you changed very quickly, it still left me with a lingering fear. I can understand your life in the past 3 years and I also know what you have been through these years. At that time I felt that you were both strange and familiar. I was afraid and pitiful. I reached out and held your hand. I wanted you to feel my strength, to feel my warmth. To make your heart feel a little better so that you were not so murderous. And when you were talking to Jiang Junling just now, your expression was ferocious and your pupils were bloodshot. You were like a werewolf who could pounce on others at any time, bite off their blood vessels and drink their blood. The murderous intent in your eyes was too strong, and the hostility in your heart was too heavy. At that time I felt that I was looking at a complete stranger." The smile on Fang Yan's face was still there. He looked lovingly at Lu Chaoga, who was holding his hand tighter and tighter. He could feel her wholehearted care and he could also feel the worry that she had not spoken out. From the first day they met, he knew that she was worried about his emotions and his psychological state. She was worried about everything about him. But as smart as she was, she did not say anything. What could you say to a barrel of dynamite? She just used her consideration to take care of Fang Yan, and her gentleness to melt Fang Yan. She hoped that the volcano would cool down. She hoped that the dynamite would stop. She hoped that Fang Yan could return to the state that he wanted in the end. However, before she could do more, she was kidnapped. She thought that she needed to go through another course of treatment. She thought that everything would have to start again. But what made her ecstatic was that Fang Yan actually walked out on his own. Although it was just a tentative step, this foot could be pulled back at any time. But she knew that their opportunity had come. It was today and it was now. She chose to have an open and honest talk with Fang Yan. She thought that she had made the right bet and she also hoped that she had made the right bet. "Fang Yan, I don't know how to resolve the murderous intent in your heart, and I don't know how to make the hostility in your heart disappear. I don't care about the life and death of Jiang Junling or anyone else, and I don't care about the life and death of anyone else, but I care about you. How can your body bear so many things? Fang Yan, you are not that kind of person. You have always been a simple and kind man. You are very smart, but you use your intelligence on the things that you like. You know how to strategize, but you never abuse your intelligence to hurt the innocent. There are too many bad people in this world, but too few good people. Don't squeeze into the group of bad people and be a good person. Isn't that good? That's the only way you'll be truly happy. You can laugh heartlessly, you can say things that make people very angry but also very funny, and you can do things that others can't think of and can't do. This is the Fang Yan, this is the you that I know." Lu Chaoga held Fang Yan's hand tightly as if she wanted to pull the previous Fang Yan out. "Fang Yan, you are too tired now. You are tired, and those of us who care about you are tired too," Lu Chaoga said emotionally. "If you laugh, we will laugh too." Fang Yan held Lu Chaoga's beautiful hand back, and it was a promise to her. "I like quiet, simple and poetic life, where I can see the golden sunlight and breathe the fresh air the moment I open my eyes." Lu Chaoga's eyes lit up and she said, "Yes, this is the Fang Yan, this is the state of life that you should find back." "Wait for me to kill all those bad people," Fang Yan said with a serious expression. Seeing that Lu Chaoga's face was full of worry again, Fang Yan pretended to be in deep thought and said, "However, when you take revenge, you can also enjoy life, right?" In the funeral parlor, Jiang Xianxia suddenly felt a heart-wrenching pain as she looked at the cold face of the man on the morgue. This was her father, the father who gave birth to and raised her, the father who bought her countless toys and taught her to sing nursery rhymes and play games. He was also the man that she was most attached to and liked when she was young. At that time he was her sorcerer and guardian knight. As she grew older, she knew more and more things and her feelings for her father became weaker and weaker. In the end, she went to school, studied abroad and had her own company and career. Sometimes she didn't even see her father for a year. She didn't feel that anything was wrong and whoever left could live equally well. Moreover, that was the man who made her carry the shame. Now he was gone. He would never talk to her again, he would never let her take care of herself again, he would never call her when he was drunk and say that his daughter's father missed her again. She could never do anything again. This was the last side, and very soon, the corpse would be incinerated into a pile of ashes. This was the final fate of humans. However, to her and her father, wasn't this moment a little too early? The bones in both legs were fractured, and they were then fixed with splints as a disguise. The fatal injury was caused by a heart defibrillator. This drug is very popular in the European black market, and it is an advanced poison that can cause rapid heart failure. If one is poisoned by this drug, there is basically no cure. Because there is simply no time, the doctor in charge of the autopsy reported to Li Yun in a low voice. "Madam, please restrain your grief." "You may leave," Li Yun said expressionlessly. The doctor nodded and quickly left the morgue. That made one feel extremely suffocated. He felt that it was very strange. This wasn't his first time performing an autopsy, and he was more familiar with corpses than with women's bodies. In the past he could do it with ease, but why did it feel so strange today? Perhaps it was because the employer this time was too powerful. Li Yun glanced at Zhang Zhulu and said, "Zhulu, what's going on?" "When I arrived, Dad could still talk to me and he even shouted for me to save him. After we finished the deal with Fang Yan, he fell on top of me. At that time I still didn't know what happened," Zhang Zhulu explained with a sorrowful expression. "I believe you." Li Yun's gaze was as sharp as a knife. "But I hope this is the last time." Chapter 485. You can act, I'll act too. Everyone is shameless anyway. One of them acted innocently while the other acted passionately. This was something that everyone was happy to see. Li Yun knew that Jiang Fengxing couldn't have been killed by Fang Yan or Fang Yan's men. Since Fang Yan had already agreed to the deal, there was no need for him to kill Jiang Fengxing. On the contrary, Fang Yan hoped that Jiang Fengxing could continue to live. Why wouldn't he be happy to let the Jiang family laugh at him? On the other hand, the Jiang family wasn't willing to let Jiang Fengxing live. Jiang Fengxing's failure was like a slap to the Jiang family. He kidnapped Feng Xing but ended up being kidnapped instead. In the end, he used 30% of the shares of the Longtu Group, which was controlled by Zhang Zhulu, one of his trusted subordinates, in exchange for Feng Xing. This was a humiliation to Feng Xing's family. If Fang Yan wanted to bring this up in the future, Jiang Fengxing would be a living witness. When that happened, not only would the Jiang family lose face, but they would also have to take the blame for him. If he was still alive, many people in the Jiang family would feel uncomfortable. At least Jiang Junling, who flew to Huaqing but was suppressed by Fang Yan, would be very unhappy. Otherwise, why would Jiang Zhulu dare to do such a thing? Even if Jiang Fengxing was a dog of the Jiang family, as long as his surname was Jiang, he wouldn't be hurt by an outsider like Jiang Zhulu. Jiang Zhulu knew that Li Yun and Jiang Xianxia knew about it, but he had no choice. He needed a fig leaf to cover up not only his helplessness and embarrassment, but also everyone's feelings. Before they fell out with each other, they still had to show their emotions. Li Yun's voice was filled with murderous intent. She stared at Jiang Zhulu and said, "Jiang Zhulu, it's enough to do something like this once. I'm warning you, don't ever hurt Xianxia." Jiang Zhulu glanced at Xianxia, whose eyes were red. He said calmly, "Mom, your worries are unnecessary. Fengxing is my wife. I can't even protect her. How could I hurt her?" "I hope so." Li Yun glanced at Jiang Fengxing, who was standing on the morgue. After this glance, their fates had ended and they would never see each other again. After Li Yun left, only the newlyweds Jiang Zhulu and Jiang Xianxia were left in the morgue. Jiang Xianxia stared at Jiang Fengxing's purple-blue face and asked, "Was he in pain when he left?" "Very calm." Jiang Zhulu said, "Very sudden." He was not prepared at all. It was very short in the time it took to say a word. Tears rolled down from the corners of Jiang Xianxia's eyes as she gritted her teeth and said, "Jiang Zhulu, aren't you afraid that I will kill you?" After wiping away the tear at the corner of Xianxia's eye, he walked past Jiang Zhulu with an ice-cold expression as if nothing had happened. Jiang Zhulu stood rooted to the ground, feeling a chill run down his spine. It was only now that he truly understood how difficult and sad the situation he had fallen into was. Looking around, there was no one around. This was probably what Jiang Junling wanted to see. He wanted to be a lone wolf. Just like what Fang Yan had said, he liked to live a simple, peaceful and poetic life, where he could see the golden sunlight and breathe in the fresh air the moment he opened his eyes. Therefore this was the life that Fang Yan was living now. He would wake up at 6 in the morning and go to the garden downstairs to exercise. After an hour of exercise he would go to the kitchen to wash the rice and cook a pot of millet porridge. Then he would go upstairs to shower and change his clothes. After washing up he would go downstairs to make breakfast. Fried eggs, slices of bread, vegetable salad or fruit salad. Of course this type of breakfast was too monotonous. Fang Yan preferred a bowl of millet porridge with a few plates of pickled vegetables. He would also be able to grab a fried dough stick or a big meat bun and stuff it into his mouth. After he was done with all this, it was time for Lu Chaoga to get out of bed. The two of them would sit together to eat and chat about some relaxing and pleasant topics. After eating, Fang Yan was responsible for washing the dishes, and then he changed his clothes to go to school. Originally, Lu Chaoga wanted Qin Ying to drive the GMC RV to send Fang Yan to the car, but Fang Yan felt that it was too high profile. A school security guard driving such a luxurious car, wouldn't that make the headlines? Fang Yan's security guard had said that he was a low-key man. Therefore, the low-key Fang Yan drove Lu Chaoga's white BMW to school. Of course, Fang Yan also knew that this was not good. Therefore, he did not go through the school's main gate, but entered through the small gate of the family compound that was specially opened for the school teachers. After parking the car in the school's parking lot, he turned out and walked toward the school's gate. The work of the security guard was very tedious and simple. When students entered the school, they would check the students' appearance and discipline, whether they were wearing a tight fit, whether their skirts were too short, whether their hairstyles were too exaggerated and non-mainstream. Sometimes they would also check the students' school cards, and the names of the students who didn't bring their school cards would be recorded, and the homeroom teacher would come and pick them up. Of course, Fang Yan would not do this kind of thing. He sat in the security room, made a cup of fragrant tea, spread out a newspaper, roughly read the day's domestic and international news, and then walked around the school. If there were no gangsters or hooligans coming to cause trouble, or if there were internal fights, Fang Yan had almost nothing to do. Fang Yan was the most idle person in the entire Rosefinch Secondary. Jing Chong, who stood at the door to check the students' discipline, poked Baldy's arm and said, "Director, isn't that what you should do?" The director of the security guard, Baldy, was full of bitterness, but his mouth was tough as he said, "As your leader, I naturally have to set an example. Suffer first, enjoy second. I'm a director, how can I compete with a young man for enjoyment? If I did that, would I have the status I have today? Don't learn from him, or else what future will you have in the future?" Jing Chong curled his lips and said, "What future do we need? We're just waiting for a rich woman to come and take care of us, brat." Baldy patted Jing Chong's head. Jing Chong slipped away with a smile and ran to the security booth to help Fang Yan fill the teacup that he had just taken a few sips of. At 9 o'clock the school's bell rang. Most of the students had already entered the classroom, and there were still a few who were late rushing over. After finishing his work, Baldy walked to the security booth and sat next to Fang Yan. He said with a smile, "Mr. Fang, how is Headmaster Lu?" "You mean Chaoga?" "She's not old," Fang Yan said. I didn't mean that." Baldy's but seemed to be on fire and he began to fidget. "How can Headmaster Lu be old? In terms of age and appearance she should be my sister. I'm talking about honorifics. Fang Yan looked at Baldy's appearance and thought that if Lu Chaoga heard what he said, the head of the security department would probably be replaced on the spot. However, for the sake of their friendship, Fang Yan was still willing to help Baldy keep his position. "Are you nervous?" Fang Yan looked at Baldy with a smile and asked. Baldy wiped the sweat off his forehead and smiled. He looked at Fang Yan with a flattering expression and said, "You don't say, I'm a little nervous. You can't understand how prestigious Headmaster Lu is in our hearts. If she's not happy, I won't be able to keep my position. Do you know how old I am this year? I've been in Rosefinch High for most of my life, and I've only been promoted to a security captain. I'm ready to retire from this position. I can't just erase it because of one sentence. Wouldn't that be a big loss for me?" Fang Yan patted Baldy's shoulder and said with a smile, "Don't worry. No one is going to take your position as the security captain." "Really?" Baldy was overjoyed. He held Fang Yan's hand and said, "Are you saying this on behalf of Headmaster Lu?" "I'm only representing myself." Fang Yan pulled his hand back. There was a trace of disappointment on the Baldy's face as he said, "Then I feel much more at ease. Headmaster Lu is a good person. Although she hardly comes to school now, she's still the most respected old leader in my heart. If you say she's old, I'm afraid she really can't be the security captain anymore. Fang Yan said with a smile. Baldy quickly covered his mouth and said, "Not old, not old. Headmaster Lu isn't old at all." Then he pulled Fang Yan's hand and said, "Mr. Fang, let me treat you to lunch. There's a restaurant opposite the school that makes good pickled fish. No need. I still have to go back to cook." Fang Yan said. Baldy's eyes were full of little stars. He said, "I really envy you. You must take care of Headmaster Lu's health so that she doesn't have to worry when she works. If you need any help, just let me know. I'll go through fire and water for you." Fang Yan smiled bitterly and said, "I'm just cooking a meal. There's no need for you to go through fire and water for me. Then I'll go make soup and light the fire. There's always a place where I'll be needed." Baldy persistently promoted himself. While the two were chatting, a girl wearing a heavy rosefinch secondary uniform passed by their security booth. After the girl walked by, she quickly turned back. She knocked on the window and said with a smile, "Mr. Fang, we meet again." Fang Yan looked at the girl with delicate eyebrows and said with a smile, "Hello. We meet again. Do you remember who I am now?" The girl asked with a smile. "Suji." Fang Yan said. The girl's eyes lit up and said, "I didn't expect Mr. Fang to remember. That's so nice." Fang Yan smiled faintly and said, "I'll try my best to remember more students' names. Of course, I can't remember most of them. There are too many students in the school." "I don't care, just remember my name," Su Chi said with a giggle. "Mr. Fang, do you have time tonight?" Chapter 486. Baldy's face was full of vigilance. He put his bald head in front of Fang Yan and said to Su Chi in an angry voice, "Miss, if you have something to say, just come at me. Let go of Mr. Fang. Mr. Fang is very busy." Baldy was very angry. Baldy was very desperate. Was this society sick? How could little girls nowadays be so active? The social atmosphere was so good in the past. He had been sitting in front of the security booth for more than 10 years, and he had never experienced such an embarrassing thing. It was peaceful and steady, and he had never encountered such embarrassment and danger. Besides, with Baldy's keen eyes and extremely smart brain, how could he not know what the little devil in front of him was thinking? She wanted to hook up with Fang Yan. This was absolutely not allowed. Fang Yan was Principal Lu's. Fang Yan was his brother and he was Principal Lu's man. Therefore he was the brother of Principal Lu's man. As long as Fang Yan was there, he could be the head of security until he retired. If Fang Yan was seduced by some little goblin inside or outside the school, Principal Lu would be angry. Wouldn't he be the head of security on his head in minutes? Who asked him to be Fang Yan's brother? No, he absolutely couldn't let them get away with it. He couldn't even think about it and he couldn't even try. Baldy had already decided, for the sake of his official hat, he was even willing to bear the humiliation and sacrifice his clean body. It was really hard to be a man these days. Baldy was very sad and angry, but his attitude was very firm. Unfortunately, there was no place for him to use his hot-bloodedness. Because Su Chi didn't look at him at all. From the beginning to the end, her eyes were fixed on Fang Yan's face that was too calm. "I really want to know what you have experienced," Su Chi said with a smile. "A normal man, when a little girl takes the initiative to pursue him, and it's a girl who is not too ugly, won't he more or less be secretly happy or moved? Why don't you have any strange emotions?" Sitting there, he looked like a monk with 6 pure and unmoved hearts. Fang Yan looked at Su Chi with a warm smile on his lips and said, "What you did, someone else has done it before and she was braver than you." That day the wind was gentle and the sun was bright. She wore a white shirt and a blue skirt. Her eyes were soft, but there was also a sense of ambition in them. She stood on the podium and said in a clear voice in front of the whole class, "I want to be closer to you and see you more clearly." That day, it was drizzling and the ancient alley was quiet and secluded. She was wearing a white cheongsam with floral patterns and holding an oil paper umbrella as she walked over. Her red high heels knocked on the stone pavement and also knocked on the man's heart. Over and over again until he was exhausted. She fell into Fang Yan's arms and said, "I'm not a prop, I'm the female lead." The 10 feet abyss was attacked and they were kidnapped. Their lives were in danger. When he was fighting with someone, a bullet was shot at the back of his heart. She used her thin and weak body to pounce on him. Her white shirt was stained with blood, but she smiled sweetly and said, "I'm not as good as her, so I can only help you block the knife." The ingenious maintenance at the airport, the patient waiting in the wind and snow, the dozens of miles of walking in Yanjing City at night, the bowl of lamb stew noodles and the parting words, "I wanted to repay you before, but now I want to protect you." That kind of deep love that moved the heaven and earth, that kind of selfless sacrifice that penetrated deep into the bones, day after day, year after year, when did it ever stop? A smile that shocked the immortals, as ethereal as a god. Looking back once, can make a person immersed in it for a lifetime. Su Qi's appearance had no meaning to Fang Yan. If he had to find a meaning, it would be that he missed Qin Yitian very much. The person who hid his figure behind the scenes, but became the biggest support that supported Chao Yan and himself. Fang Yan was not a fool, nor was he an idiot. If it wasn't for the Qin family's support, how could the Jiang family still be helpless against him? If it wasn't for the close relationship between him and Qin Yitian, they could have used an even more extreme method to solve this transaction. Qin Yitian. Qin Yitian. No one was Qin Yitian, only Qin Yitian was Qin Yitian. "I don't have time." Fang Yan directly refused. These students were too dangerous, he didn't want to have too much interaction with them. "I knew you would say that." Su Qi didn't care at all. She took out an envelope from her bag and said, "Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin's Treading on Snow and Searching for Plum, classical music concert. I'm sure you wouldn't want to miss it, right?" Fang Yan was stunned. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin's concert? Those two girls came back to Huaqing? What? Baldy's eyes widened and he said excitedly, "You mean the Arisima group? Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin? They're going to hold a concert in Huaqing? How come I didn't know about this? Oh my god, they're famous stars from our Huaqing, I really like them. Oh right, miss, is that their concert ticket in your hand?" Seeing Fang Yan's slightly surprised expression, Su Qi thought Fang Yan was moved. She knew that going too far was as bad as not going far enough, so she wouldn't force him. Instead, she put the envelope on the table in front of Fang Yan and said with a smile, "This is a good location, let's go enjoy this musical feast together." Su Qi waved her hand and said, "Goodbye, Mr. Fang." Then she turned and walked towards the direction of the classroom. She walked slowly and didn't care when the bell rang for a long time. When Su Qi was far away, Baldy's face was full of excitement, and his eyes were shining as he looked at Fang Yan and said, Mr. Fang, I know you have something to do tonight and someone needs to take care of Principal Lu. How about..." Fang Yan looked at Baldy and said, "Take it." "Thank you, Mr. Fang." Baldy grabbed the concert ticket and shouted excitedly, that's great, I love Arisima so much. Those two beautiful girls sitting there in ancient clothes, they make me forget all my worries, they're my idols. What do you think I should wear to meet them tonight? I did buy a suit during Chinese New Year, but the color is too dark, it makes me look too old." Fang Yan originally wanted to take Baldy to see the two little girls, Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin, but after seeing Baldy's performance he gave up this irrational idea. This guy was really embarrassing. After Fang Yixing died in battle, Xianxia took Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin to visit him at Swallow Dock. The two little girls accompanied Fang Yan at Swallow Dock for a long time, and they never left Fang Yan's mother, Lu Wan. Because the last time they came, Lu Wan also liked them the most and treated them as her own daughters. Later, when they returned to the capital to study, they often went to Swallow Dock to visit Fang Yan. Later they became busier and busier, and the number of times they came to visit Fang Yan also decreased. At that time Fang Yan rarely spoke and it was the two of them who surrounded Fang Yan and chatted. They said they learned Guzheng, they said they learned Sun Panshao and Guqin. They talked about who they had learned from and which master had taught them. They said they participated in some program with Sister Xiaxia, and the live performance was very intense. They said they wanted to go out to practice and Sister Xiaxia said she wanted to make a group for them. Even though Fang Yan had been mourning in Swallow Dock for 3 years, he still knew how popular the two little girls, Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin, were now. Fang Yan gave Su Qi's ticket to Baldy, but he still decided to come to see Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin's Looking for Plum in the Snow concert. He wanted to see their growth over the years and see their glory tonight. They called him teacher, so he wanted to witness all kinds of beauty of his students. He came in a joyful mood. For many people, the tickets to the Arisima group's concert were hard to get. For the current Fang Yan, if he wanted a ticket to the concert, it was just a matter of saying a word. Fang Yan just mentioned it to Lu Chaoga and Qining went out and brought back a stack of tickets. Lu Chaoga's injury had not recovered, and she was not willing to come out to participate in such activities. She also wanted to talk to Fang Yan and his students. Fang Yan could only come alone. He held the thick stack of concert tickets and didn't know who to give it to. Fang Yan drove the car to the venue of the concert, Tianhe Music Hall. As the car approached Tianhe City, he saw a large number of fans in Hanfu or Cheongsam rushing towards the direction of the music hall. Most of them were very young and their faces were full of excitement and joy. Fang Yan had just seen such an expression on Baldy's face. Some people said that classical music was too niche. Except for a small number of fans, it was difficult to walk into the ordinary people, and it was difficult to walk into the hearts of young people. But now Fang Yan understood that it was not that classical music was too niche, but that it had not encountered really good music. It was not difficult to walk into the hearts of young people, but you had to find a way to make young people like you and accept you. Fang Yan saw the success of Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin from the eyes of those young people, and saw the success of classical music. He also saw the success of Summer. That superstar-like figure, when she stood at the peak of Wuxia's music, still shouldered a more important responsibility and mission. She wanted to lead Wuxia classical music to stand at the peak of world music. Such a beautiful thing, such a magical treasure, she should not be annihilated in the long river of history, but should bloom with a more dazzling brilliance. Jiang Qin, I love you. Yuan Lin, it's you. Arasima, I love you. Arasima, my heart. The fan group held the love banners of the Arasima group and the ancient costumes of Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin, and shouted from time to time. Fang Yan smiled, parked the car in the parking lot, and walked towards the VIP passage of the music hall. At this moment, a beautiful little girl blocked in front of Fang Yan. Chapter 487. The girl looked young, but she had heavy makeup on and was wearing a sexy short skirt that did not match her image at all. The girl stood in front of Fang Yan and asked with a sweet voice, "Uncle, are you also here to see the Arasima concert?" Fang Yan nodded and looked at the girl with a puzzled expression. "Do we know each other?" The girl giggled and extended her hand to Fang Yan. "We didn't know each other before, but can't we get to know each other now? My name is Lu Yi. How should I address Uncle?" Fang Yan was sure he didn't know this girl, so he didn't shake hands with her. He looked at the girl and asked, "What's the matter?" The girl's expression suddenly became resentful. She stomped her feet and said, "Uncle, why are you so annoying? I just want to get to know you. I've already extended my hand, but you don't even shake hands with me. I asked for your name, but you don't say it. Are you a gentleman? You don't know how to be kind to the fairer sex." Fang Yan looked at the girl and went around her to check the tickets. "This person is sick." "Hey, Uncle." Louis once again blocked in front of Fang Yan with a very professional smile on her face. "Uncle, I saw you came to see the Arasima concert alone. Don't you think it's boring without a female companion? I'll go in with you, okay?" Fang Yan looked at the girl and shook his head. "Thank you. I'm fine by myself." "Uncle," the girl shouted coquettishly. Seeing that Fang Yan wanted to leave, she grabbed Fang Yan's arm and said, "Can you take me in? I also want to see the Arasima concert. Let's go watch the concert first, then go out for supper, okay?" Fang Yan thought for a bit and stopped to look at the girl in front of him. "Which school are you from?" Fang Yan asked. Lu Yi's eyes looked away in panic and said, "Uncle, why are you asking me which school I'm from? Don't you like students? Don't all the uncles nowadays like to date students?" "I'm asking you which school are you from?" Fang Yan raised his voice and said with a stern expression. Lu Yi's body trembled. She didn't dare to refuse Fang Yan's question. She said softly, "I'm from the Huaqing Music Academy. Because I like the classical music of the Arasima so much, I wanted to follow you and to have a look. If the one you met today wasn't me but any other man, you would have begged to go in with them, wouldn't you?" Fang Yan asked coldly. "That's not it," Lu Yi explained in a low voice. "I've been standing here for a long time. Those who can enter the VIP passage are all wealthy people. In their eyes, a ticket isn't worth much. I'm not the kind of man who would beg for a ticket. I'm looking for a man who is pleasing to the eye and comes alone. Such a man generally won't reject a female companion, and then go for supper." Fang Yan looked at the girl's thick eyeshadow and asked aloud. With a shy expression, Lu Yi said, "Uncle, don't misunderstand. I only said to go for supper, I don't mean anything else. If you don't mean anything else, Then do the men around you also don't? Fang Yan asked in return. Hey, it's okay. Rich people still have manners. Fang Yan sneered and said, that's because you haven't seen rich people without manners. It doesn't feel good to be interrogated like this, right? Fang Yan asked aloud. Yes, Lu Yi said in a low voice. You didn't expect to meet a man like me? They would either agree or directly refuse, because you're trading yourself as a commodity. Who would talk nicely to a commodity? Who would pay any attention to a commodity? There's nothing in this world that comes without sowing. If you want to gain something, you have to pay something. You want a ticket to watch the Aerosima concert, so you have to pay with your dignity or something more important. Because you're a commodity, you don't have the right to bargain. Uncle, I'm not going in with you. I'm going back to school right now, Lu Yi said with red eyes. She wanted to leave. Fang Yan's words were so harsh that she felt like they were piercing her heart. Wait, Fang Yan called out. Lu Yi turned around to look at Fang Yan and asked, Uncle, is there anything else? You're from Huaqing? Fang Yan asked. From the girl's voice, he could tell she had a Huaqing accent. Yes. My family is from Huaqing, but our family's financial situation isn't very good, Lu Yi said with a wronged voice. Because your family's financial situation isn't very good, you want to take a shortcut? Call your parents, Fang Yan said. What? Tell them you want to invite them to the Aerosima concert. But do as I say. But, don't make me repeat myself, Fang Yan said with a straight face. It's a waste of my saliva, they'll think I'm trying to convince them. Lu Yi didn't ask anymore, took out her phone from her pocket and dialed her mother's number. After Lu Yi hung up, Fang Yan took out 3 extra tickets from his pocket and gave them to her, saying, if you don't know how to love yourself, you'll never have self-respect. Accompany your parents to a concert, look at their faces, think about what they've done for you. Saying so, Fang Yan turned around and walked towards the VIP ticket counter. Uncle, your name. Fang Yan waved his hand and quickly disappeared from Lu Yi's sight. When Lu Yi's parents arrived, they saw their daughter sitting on the steps of the concert hall in a daze. Their clothes were simple, their faces were deeply wrinkled. Just like countless ordinary parents of ordinary children. This was what real life was like. Lu Yi's mother pulled her daughter up from the ground, patted the dust off her dress and said, silly girl, why are you sitting on the ground? It's cold on the ground, it's not good for a girl's body. What if you freeze? Lu Yi's father smiled, looked at the huge and luxurious building complex in front of him and said with some hesitation, Xiao Tao, why did you want to invite mom and dad to listen to this? I said no, but your mom insisted that we come to see. How much does it cost? How about you and your mom go in and I won't go in? I'll take a few laps by the river and when you're done we'll go back together. Lu Yi held back her tears, held her mother's hand and said with a smile, it's free, this ticket is a gift from someone. You and my mom go in, I won't go in. That won't do. Or you and your mom go in, Dad. Lu Yi cried and said, just listen to me this time. You go in with my mom, I'll wait for you outside. We'll go home together later. Hey. I'll go in with your mom. Lu Yi's father saw his daughter crying and panicked and quickly said, don't cry. I'll go in, okay? Dad, thank you. Lu Yi put the 2 tickets in her hand into her father's hand and said, you guys go in quickly. The concert is about to start. You're in the VIP lounge. If you can't find a seat, ask the staff to take you in. Dad knows. This child, why did she start crying? Lu Yi stood still, watching her parents walk into the concert hall one after another. She gave the remaining ticket in her hand to a girl who was looking for a target and said in a low voice, if you don't know how to love yourself, you'll never have self-esteem. After saying that, she walked down the stairs. She will come in, rely on her own efforts to get in. Not in such a humiliating and cowardly way. In the backstage dressing room of the concert hall, countless staff members were busy nervously and orderly. This wasn't the first concert of the Aerosima group, but it was the most important concert of the Aerosima group. Because Huaqing was the hometown of the 2 members of the Aerosima group, their advertising slogan was also, Homecoming Journey. The girls who had been popular for the past 2 years were going to show their talent in front of their parents, their neighbors, their teachers and their friends and accept their judgment. The significance of this event was extraordinary. If the media in Huaqing were to scold or criticize after the performance, what would happen to Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin? How would they, the team members, deal with this? Therefore, Everyone was very serious, striving to make every detail perfect. The most relaxed should be the two people involved, Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin. They were sitting in front of the dressing table doing their hair. Lin, are uncle and auntie here today? Jiang Qin, who was happily eating a box of strawberries, asked. They're here. Yuan Lin answered without looking up. I've already reserved the best seats for them. How could they not come when their precious daughter is playing in front of their house? Not only did they come, but they also paid for the tickets out of their own pockets. They even invited our family's aunts and relatives who couldn't be further away. Now do you understand why our Huaqing's tickets sell out so quickly? Because our old man booked the whole place. I don't believe it. Jiang Qin said with a smile. Our other tickets are also selling very well. Did your family book the whole place at that time? But my parents are here today and they invited a lot of relatives to come and support. They've probably met and chatted by now. I really want to go and chat with them. Yes. My mom's physique has a tendency to grow. I told her to be careful, but she said she's fat now because she's relaxed. She even said that I'm biased. Why can my dad be fat but not her? Your mom is so interesting. I miss the braised pork trotter she made. I miss it too, Jiang Qin said. Her thoughts drifted far away and she said, Mr. Fong returned to Huaqing. I know. I wanted to send him an invitation. I thought about it too. But, I'm afraid he hasn't gotten over it yet. Why should I make things difficult for him? He's been through too much these years. We met Sister Xia Tian because of Mr. Fong, and it's because of Mr. Fong that we embarked on this path, Yuan Lin said with a sigh. Her gaze finally shifted away from the mobile game. If only Mr. Fong could come to our concert, that would be great. Yes. The strawberry in Jiang Qin's mouth suddenly became tasteless. She threw the strawberry box on the dressing table with some annoyance and said, If only Mr. Fong came to our concert, that would be great. I really hope Mr. Fong could come. Chapter 488. Fong Yan's seat was on the second floor of the music hall, which was a small, independent box. These private rooms were specially prepared for celebrities, and dignitaries who did not want to be seen by the outside world. The reservation fee for each private room was very expensive. The box was separated by walls on both sides, and the outer layer was guarded by a wooden door. Only the direction facing the stage was empty. You could sit in the seats and enjoy the show, or stand up and lean on the railing to enjoy the performance at a closer distance. If you were well prepared in advance, you could even open a bottle of red wine or brandy and savor it with your family and friends. There were other boxes on both sides of the box, but no one needed to greet each other. Fong Yan looked at the seat. This was a small room for 4 people and he might meet Lu Yi and her parents later. The concert hadn't started yet, but the audience was already full. The sound of mountains and seas could be heard from time to time, and the names of Jiang Qin, Yuan Lin, and Arasima resounded in his ears. It seemed that these 2 little girls were really prosperous and their careers were developing very fast. Fong Yan sat alone for a while and a pair of old people with vicissitudes of life walked in timidly. They saw that there were already people in the box, so they stood at the door and didn't dare to come in. But they knew that this was their seat and they didn't want to leave. For a moment they didn't know what to do. Fong Yan grinned and took the initiative to greet them and said, Are you Lu Yi's parents? Yes. We are. Lu Yi's father said. On such an occasion, although he was also very nervous, it was still necessary to stand up and greet them. Your seat is here. Come in. Fong Yan said with a smile. Lu Yi's parents came in and sat on the 2 sofas farthest from Fong Yan. Although they couldn't be too far from Fong Yan. In their hearts, those who could watch the performance in such a place must be famous people. They had no experience in dealing with such people and they didn't know what to say. However, it was also rude not to say anything. Lu Yi's father looked at Fong Yan and said, Sir, did you give Lu Yi the concert tickets? Fong Yan nodded and said, Yes. You are. Lu Yi's parents looked at each other and began to guess Fong Yan's identity. For all the parents in the world, any strange man around their daughter was dangerous. I am Lu Yi's teacher, Fong Yan said with a smile. He was indeed Lu Yi's teacher. He taught her how to win the respect of others. He taught her how to be a person. What Fong Yan didn't expect was that Lu Yi didn't accompany her parents. It seemed that this girl was more sensitive and proud than he had imagined. If she had really changed, then these 2 tickets to the concert were too valuable. It might be worth more than the value of the whole concert. I happen to have extra tickets on hand. I saw Lu Yi at the entrance of the concert hall, so I gave her the ticket. So it's teacher. Lu Yi's parents' hearts that were hanging in their throats suddenly fell to the ground. The two of them clasped their hands tightly. There was a kind of relief after the lingering fear. Hello, teacher. It's good to be a teacher. Are you teaching music at the Academy of Music? Fang Yan smiled and didn't answer their question. He said, I thought she would come in with her classmates. I didn't expect her to give the tickets to you. Lu Yi is a filial child. Lu Yi's parents' faces were full of joy. Lu Yi's mother finally couldn't help but open her mouth and said, Our Tao Tao has been sensible since she was young. There is only one apple at home, but she knows to divide it into 3 parts. She gives the biggest part to Dad, saying that Dad works hard. The second biggest part is for me, saying that it's hard for me to cook every day. She eats the smallest part. It's because our family's condition isn't good that the child has suffered with us. The greatest gift is giving. You give her everything you have, how can she suffer? Fang Yan comforted them with a smile. You see, now that she's grown up, doesn't she know how to repay kindness? Yes. This child. Lu Yi's father couldn't stop smiling. He said, I said I didn't understand this and let her and her mother come in, but she didn't agree. She still has a great youth and there are plenty of opportunities to enjoy in the future. She hopes to give you what she thinks is the best so that you 2 old people can enjoy it. Fang Yan echoed the pride in their words and said, The concert is about to begin. I won't bother you 2 anymore. If you need anything you can tell me. Fang Yan could see the restraint in their words and the inferiority in their bones. Every word Fang Yan said to them was like a punishment. At this time, the best way was to let them keep silent and seriously enjoy the next performance. Yes. Lu Yi's father said while rubbing his hands. He wanted to step forward and shake hands with Fang Yan, but he felt that it was a little inappropriate to do so. In order not to make them nervous, Fang Yan deliberately walked to the edge of the railing of the box and stood there. He planned to stand and listen to the concert. Young Master Fu, let me tell you, these 2 little girls are still very young. Not only are they pretty, their skin is so fresh and juicy. You can even pinch them and water will come out. Aren't you tired of playing with that little girl from before? Do you want to change the goods? I know you like this kind of girl. A frivolous and greasy man's voice came from the railing of the box next door. What? Liang Dachang, what kind of unorthodox methods do you have? A gloomy voice said jokingly. Hey, as long as young Master Fu agrees, I'll settle these 2 girls for you tonight. What? Which star comes to our Huaqing to visit? Won't they give us a taste of sweetness? Didn't they say that these 2 girls have a strong background? They've been in the industry for several years, and no one dares to have any ideas about them? What background can they have? Isn't it just because she calls Xia Tian sister? There are so many artists in Xia Tian's company, can she take care of them all? Besides, let alone Xia Tian's sister, even if Xia Tian comes personally, as long as young Master Fu says the word, I can also think of a way to get rid of her. Bullsh *T Heavenly King and Queen, that's what those little brats call them. We won't put them in our eyes. If we want to play, it'll be 2 kings and 1 queen. The conversation continued, but Fang Yan's expression was as cold as frost. When Xia Tian wanted to bring Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin into the entertainment industry, Fang Yan was worried that something like this would happen. But Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin both liked it, and the fact that they wanted to promote classical music was indeed praiseworthy. After vaguely knowing some of Xia Tian's background, he thought that there wouldn't be any blind guy in Wuxia who would have ideas about Xia Tian or Xia Tian's disciple. Therefore, Fang Yan finally relented and helped Xia Tian convince Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin's family. From the conversation between Liang Dachang and young Master Fu, Fang Yan also heard that Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin had been having a smooth life these years. With Xia Tian's protection, no one dared to touch them. However, they weren't afraid of those with a high level, but they were afraid of those with a low vision. Those who knew Xia Tian's identity wouldn't touch Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin, but people like Liang Dachang and young Master Fu who didn't know Xia Tian's background were likely to use dangerous methods to force the 2 girls to submit. Fang Yan was about to make a move when suddenly there was an earth-shattering uproar below the stage. Jiang Qin, I love you. Yuan Lin, fate comes to you. Arasima. The stage, which was pitch black just a moment ago, was suddenly lit up. The concert had officially begun. The place where the stage was originally located had become a fairyland filled with wind and snow. It wasn't the background of an electronic screen, but a real man-made scenery. Snowflakes danced in the sky and winter-sweet flowers bloomed. There was a bamboo pavilion in the middle of the plum blossoms, and two girls in white and cyan palace dresses were laughing and playing in the pavilion. From time to time, there would be laughter that sounded like silver bells, and people couldn't help but curl up the corners of their lips. The scenery was fairyland and the people were immortals. The immortals and fairyland complemented each other. The performance hadn't even started, but the visual effect presented by the Aircema team was already refreshing. "I'm not playing anymore, I'm bored to death." The Cyan Fairy sat on the stone chair in the bamboo pavilion, threw the red embroidered ball in her hand into the snow, and said in a tired voice. The voice spread through the speakers and Fang Yan could tell that it was Yuan Lin's voice. "Sister, let's make a song?" The White Fairy walked to the opposite side of the Cyan Fairy and said softly. This was Jiang Qin's voice. "Make a song? What song?" The Cyan Fairy was very tempted by her big sister's suggestion and asked with a smile. The White Fairy pointed at the scenery around them and said, "We're here to admire the snow and flowers, so this song naturally has to be related to the white snow and the plum blossoms. How about we call this song, Looking for Plum Blossoms in the Snow?" Sure. "Then let's play out what we're feeling right now and call the song, Looking for Plum Blossoms in the Snow?" Wonderful. And so the Cyan Fairy took out a long flute from her waist, put it to her lips and began to play it. The sound of the flute was ethereal and intoxicating. The White Fairy sat on the stone chair, reaching out her slender hand to play with a phoenix tail gouging on the table. The sound was clear like a mountain spring. The sound of the gouging and gouging was very pleasing to the ear. And the best part was the combination of the flute and the gouging. One was long and distant, the other lively and powerful. Two different instruments, two different girls, the combination was enough to make people go crazy. Fang Yan gripped the railing tightly, and looked at the two girls who were performing seriously in the snow and plum blossoms forest with a face full of joy. These were his students and he was very proud of their achievements today. Just like Lu Yi's parents, because their daughter gave the biggest piece of an apple to her parents, they had always remembered it for more than 10 years. He wanted to tell everyone in the world that they were his students. "Young Master Fu, look, do you feel anything? Do you feel anything? I'll book them and let them wear this palace dress when we're working." Chapter 489. Su Qi's private room was on the 3rd floor, directly facing the center of the stage. Sitting in this position she could look down at the performance on the stage belonging to the VIP of the VIPs. It was also the most expensive and prestigious position in the entire music hall. It was said that these seats were given to some very important people at the beginning. When Fang Yan asked for a ticket, even with Lu Chaoga's connections in Huaqing, he could only get a VIP room on the 2nd floor. Su Qi's private room was also for 4 people, but she was the only one who came to watch the concert. It could be seen that Su Qi had put on a lot of effort for this concert. She took off the Vermilion Bird Middle School's sky blue uniform and changed into a long white dress with floral patterns, a pair of light blue deep-waisted canvas shoes, and a small floral hat on her head. She looked delicate and fashionable. She didn't use too many accessories and she didn't put on too much makeup. Because she knew better than anyone that a girl's most powerful weapon was youth. A girl's feelings were always poetry and she was at the age of poetry. Su Qi sat in her seat and waited patiently, but the man still didn't show up until the concert began. She wanted to call Fang Yan to ask, but she found that she didn't have that man's number. Is this love? Su Qi thought, resting her chin on her hand. She actually fell in love with a school security guard? If this kind of thing was known by her classmates or her group of friends, they would definitely laugh at her, right? But who cares? Right? He said that what he was doing had been done before, and it was done by someone more courageous than her. Who was that girl? Was she also a student? What an enchanting and charming uncle. Clang, the private room door was pushed open with great force. Su Qi's heart suddenly stopped and she turned around with a face full of surprise. Then the smile on her face froze. Baldy, dressed in a navy blue suit, stood at the door sweating profusely. He looked at the girl and kept apologizing. I'm sorry. There's a concert tonight so there's a traffic jam. When I got there I couldn't find a place to park. I drove around the concert hall a few times and finally stopped in front of the store across the road. Suki did not hear what Baldi said. She only cared about one thing. Why are you here? That's me. Baldi looked at the girl in confusion and said seriously. Why you? Why not me? What about him? Oh, you mean Fang Yan? He's not free. He's not free. Su Qi's heart suddenly ached. He didn't have time. This reason really hurt his pride. Baldi walked over to Su Qi and sat down beside her. Don't be sad, he said. Fang Yan was very busy. When he got back he still had to cook for the old principal. Didn't you want someone to watch the concert with you? It's the same if I accompany you. Just like you, I'm also a hardcore fan of Arisima. Baldi waved his hands in the air and shouted the slogan of Arisima's fans. Star, I love you. Star, we'll be together forever. Yeah. I'm not bragging. When it comes to appreciating classical music, I'm better than Fang Yan. It's different. Suki said. What's different? You're not good looking. Baldi opened his mouth again and again. He didn't know how to refute. In the private room on the second floor, such a tragedy happened. What a masterpiece. A gloomy man's voice sounded. Beauty is the most beautiful. Beauty is pleasing to the eye. Beauty that can cause the downfall of a country will shock the world. They're not twins, but they're better than twins. Liang Decheng, my happy life is in your hands. Young Master Fu, it's a small matter. You've come from afar and our Huaqing has nothing to entertain you except some cheap seafood. Coincidentally, these two girls are Huaqing's specialties. Why don't you go through the trouble of appraising them and see if they taste good? Haha, it's no problem. I'm willing to do this. Young Master Fu laughed heartily. Fang is not bad. You're loyal. From now on you'll be my good brother. Fang Yan's good mood disappeared. He used a bit of strength and grabbed a wooden plank from the wooden railing in front of him. He threw it in the direction of the voice coming from the private room next door. Ah, someone screamed. Who threw it at me? Who the hell threw it at me? Someone roared angrily. It was Liang Decheng, the pimp who wanted to introduce Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin to young Master Fu. Young Master Liang, what's wrong? What happened? Blood. Young Master Liang, your head is bleeding. The private room next door was in chaos. Damn it, search them row by row. I want to see who dares to go against me. Liang Decheng shouted hysterically. Don't be rash. There are too many people here, don't blow things up. Young Master Fu comforted him. If things get out of hand we won't be able to do anything. Liang Decheng seemed to be extremely afraid of this young Master Fu. Although he was still cursing, he could only suppress his anger for the time being. He also knew that if he asked his men to search the private rooms row by row, he would offend all the guests in the VIP rooms on the second and third floor. If the commotion was too big, the concert would be messed up by him. By then, everyone's attention would be on him. Even if he wasn't afraid, there was no need for him and his old man to be on the headlines, right? Damn unlucky. Liang Decheng cursed angrily. If I find out which bastard did this, I'll skin him alive. A cold, murderous intent appeared in Fang Yan's eyes. If it wasn't for the sake of the concert going on normally, that piece of wood would have crippled someone or directly smashed their skull, killing them. If he hadn't shown mercy, did he think he would still have the chance to speak? That attack was just a small punishment. It had to be said that this was a high-standard concert. Fang Yan had heard Music Addict, one of the 7 addicts of Wuxia, perform classical music live at the Maple Leaf Club. That kind of breathing could move people's emotions, and it made people's minds have endless associations. Along with the joy of the music, joy of joy, sorrow of sorrow. Deep down, tears streamed down one's face. With Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin's current attainments, they naturally couldn't be compared to Music Addict. They were too young and had too little experience, so they couldn't perform a silent and sorrowful movement. But they took a different path. Since they couldn't perform sad music, then it had nothing to do with sadness. They just wanted to pass on happiness. Therefore, in their music one could feel the wind singing, see the snowflakes dancing, and experience the magical process of plum trees growing and blooming quietly. They were 2 fairies who descended from heaven, chasing and playing in the snowflakes, happy and carefree. Clear joy and refreshing laughter spread along the way. One didn't need to think too much and one didn't need to do much. One just needed to enjoy and laugh with them all the way. This was the feeling that Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin brought to the audience, and it was also the feeling that they brought to Fang Yan. Fang Yan thought that their choice back then was right and their efforts were worth it. He liked this kind of music and Wuxia also needed this kind of music. It's so beautiful. Lu Yi's father praised and said enviously, if our Tao Tao could be like this in the future, how great would that be? Definitely can. Our daughter is so beautiful and she studies so hard. Teacher, don't you think so? Lu Yi's mother looked at Fang Yan expectantly and asked. They didn't understand music, but they simply believed in their daughter's excellence. This kind of belief was very firm but also so lacking in confidence. So they hoped that there would be a professional who could give them some comments. Definitely can. Fang Yan turned around and smiled. As long as she continues to work hard. Thank you, teacher. Thank you, teacher. After Lu Yi's parents heard this simple and even exaggerated comment from Fang Yan, their faces flushed with excitement and they kept saying thank you. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin performed, treading on the snow to find plum blossoms, 3 lives, 3 worlds, greeting the Lord, and also sang several ancient songs on the stage. One of the songs was called Swallow Dock. The green bricks and gray tiles were their deepest concern. The affectionate and moving melody, the familiar and touching lyrics, made Fang Yan unable to extricate himself. This song was written and composed by Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin. Before they sang, they said that they wanted to give this song to their teacher, their best friend, a very special person to them. Fang Yan knew that the person they were talking about was him. When he cared about them, they didn't forget him. At the end of the concert, the venue that had been quiet became noisy again. The fans who had just woken up from one classical feast after another were unwilling to leave. They shouted the names of Jiang Qin, Yuan Lin and Arisima over and over again and shouted, encore again and again. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin were also unwilling to leave. The two of them stood in the center of the stage with a microphone and bowed deeply to the audience below the stage. We don't want to leave either. Jiang Qin raised the microphone and said, it seems like it has just started. Why is it over already? Huaqing is our hometown and you are our family. Yuan Lin said in a sweet voice. Before preparing for the concert in Huaqing, the staff were very nervous. They were worried that we would make mistakes and let our relatives in our hometown laugh at us. But honey and I don't feel nervous at all, because you are our family. Even if we don't perform well, you will definitely forgive us. Who would be too harsh on their relatives? The applause below the stage was like thunder, accompanied by happy laughter. Chapter 490. Our parents are in Huaqing. Our family and friends are in Huaqing. We were born in Huaqing, grew up in Huaqing and went to primary and secondary school in Huaqing. We met a very important man in our lives in Huaqing. Jiang Qin said sadly. There was a moment of silence and then there was a tsunami of exclamations. Sweetheart, who is that man? Who is that man? Sweetheart, are you guys in love? Please don't, goddess, you've broken my heart. Who is that man? Wang Ku, the manager of Arisima backstage, was really anxious. He grabbed the shoulders of the staff next to him and shouted, what are they talking about? What are they talking about? Ask her to stop. No one asked Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin to stop, because Xianxia said that they were completely free on the stage. When they stood on the stage was theirs. Yuan Lin looked at Jiang Qin with a surprised expression. She didn't expect Jiang Qin to say that at this time. Jiang Qin's voice was a little sad. He said, I don't mean to say it on purpose. It's just that when I return to this city, I can't help but smell his scent. You must not know that the reason why Yuan Lin and I took this path, the reason why we were able to stand on the stage of classical music, and the reason why we worked hard for such a goal, is also greatly related to him. I don't know if he came to our concert. Maybe he didn't. But I know he is in Huaqing, so I feel very at ease. The fans below the stage were even more crazy. They kept shouting Jiang Qin's name and asked Jiang Qin who the man was. He is my teacher. Jiang Qin said with a sly smile. A teacher who influenced my life. Near the front of the stage, Sister Li looked at her daughter's expression and sighed deeply. Jiang Dehai held his wife's chubby hand and said, the child has grown up and has her own ideas. Let her be. I know, Sister Li said with some annoyance. I'm not against Qin and Fang Yan being together. Honey was now an adult and she had the right to choose her own life. What I'm worried about is, where is Fang Yan now? I haven't seen him for a few years. I called my daughter to ask, but she didn't say anything. I don't know what happened. Fang Yan is a good kid. Jiang Dehai looked at Sister Li with a puzzled expression and said, didn't you dislike Fang Yan before? You even chased her out for no reason. Why did you change your attitude now? What do you know? Auntie Li said angrily. I didn't like Fang Yan in the past because she was still young. We couldn't let her be with Fang Yan. Now that our dear one has grown up, why can't he treat our dear one well? Look at Honey's pitiful face. You weren't this sad when I rejected you when you confessed to me, right? Cough, cough, cough. Jiang Dehai coughed violently. The topic of his wife was too explosive and he couldn't take it anymore. I really envy you guys, Jiang Qin said with a smile. You guys can live in the same city as him, look at the same sky, breathe the same air. But I have to fly around every day and the time I can stay in Huaqing is too little. If you see him you must say hello to me. Say hello to Mr. Fang, Jiang Qin said she misses you. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin bowed to the audience below the stage again, and they left amidst the reluctance and shouts of the audience below the stage. Fang Yan didn't expect that there would be such a scene at the end of the concert. Jiang Qin, this fearless girl, was really capable of doing anything. But in this way, wouldn't he be in the headlines tomorrow? Fang Yan completely believed in the paparazzi's sense of smell and ability. Jiang Qin said the words Mr. Fang, and Jiang Qin had been in a scandal with him before she became famous. At that time, it even became negative news in the newspapers. As long as those people had the intention to find out, they would definitely be able to find these clues. Fang Yan just wanted to be a quiet little security guard. The concert ended and the crowd began to disperse. Lu Yi's parents stood up and looked at Fang Yan. They wanted to say something but didn't know what to say. Fang Yan took the initiative to walk over and shook hands with Lu Yi's father. He said with a smile, "Take care of yourself." "Thank you, teacher." "Thank you." Lu Yi's father thanked him profusely. "You have a good daughter." Fang Yan said with a smile, turned around and walked out of the private room. He went to the private room next door, ready to talk to Liang Dechang and young Master Fu about professional issues such as the sense of music and the multiple forms of expression of classical music, but found that there was no one inside. They left early. Fang Yan's eyes turned cold and he quickly walked downstairs. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin retreated backstage. Yuan Lin took Jiang Qin's hand and said, "Sweetheart, why did you say it in front of so many people? Aren't you afraid?" All of a sudden I felt something. Jiang Qin was a little depressed and said in a low voice, "We have worked so hard and risked our lives for the past few years. We want to show him our best side. We want him to know our talent and let him recognize our excellence. But when we have the opportunity to stand in the center of the stage and have the ability to prove ourselves to him, he doesn't know where he went. So what if today's concert is a success? I still feel empty in my heart. Lin, even if we do it, even if we really bring classical music to the world stage, but what's the point of that for me?" Sigh. Yuan Lin sighed softly. "Let's go see Mr. Fang tomorrow. We'll treat him to a meal, treat him to a drink, even if we don't do anything. We'll just watch him quietly and accompany him." "Okay," Jiang Qin said with red eyes. "We'll go see him tomorrow. Wherever he goes, we'll go there. We'll pay for his meals and pour for his drinks. He doesn't say anything and does nothing. We'll just sit beside him and say nothing and do nothing. Just like when we were in Swallow Dock." The two girls made such an agreement and their moods became cheerful again. Wang Ku walked over and hugged the two girls of Erisima warmly. She said with a smile, "Sweetheart Lin, congratulations. Today's performance was amazing. The whole Huaqing will be proud of you." "Thank you," Yuan Lin said with a smile. "If only there wasn't a last performance," Wang Ku said. This was a subtle reminder and a warning. Jiang Qin said softly, "Sister Wang, I'm sorry for making things difficult for you." It's okay," Wang Ku said with a smile. "What's there to make things difficult for? Isn't it my job? I just want to talk to him," Jiang Qin said. "I think he'll definitely hear it in this way." Wang Ku didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She said, "My lady, not only Mr. Fang heard it. The whole Huaqing heard it. Just wait and see. Tomorrow morning all the newspapers in Huaqing will be filled with news about you. I don't care." Sister Xiatian said before, "Don't care about what the outside world thinks. We just need to focus on our own music." "Yes. Don't worry about it. You just need to focus on your music. Don't you have Sister Wang to do the rest? If Sister Wang can't do it well, there's still President Xia, right? Am I right? At this moment, a group of people walked toward the dressing room backstage. The security guards went forward to stop them. The leader, a man with a buzz cut, slapped them in the face and scolded, "Are you blind? Even I can't go in?" The security guard was slapped in the face. When he was about to fight back, the two bodyguards in black behind the man with the brush cut rushed over. One on the left and the other on the right, they rushed into the crowd and knocked down the security guards who were in charge of guarding the place. Clang! The man with a buzz cut pushed open the door of the dressing room and saw Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin chatting inside. He couldn't help but be amused. He turned around and said to the man with glasses behind him, "Young Master Fu, it seems that you have good luck with women today. I was worried that they would run away. If that was the case, it would take some time. Now they are still here. Shall we talk to them now?" Fu Lei adjusted the glasses on the bridge of his nose and said with a smile, "Be polite." "Hey, got it," Liang Dechang said with a smile. He walked up to Wang Ku, took out a business card from his pocket and handed it over. He said, "I'm Liang Dechang, the chairman of the Dechang Group. You can easily find out what I do as long as you go out and ask around." Wang Ku usually had Xia Tian's support, so she really didn't take Liang Dechang seriously. She stood in front of Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin with her slightly plump body and said with a smile, "Young Master Liang, why have so many of you barged in? What business do you have?" Liang Dechang pointed at Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin and asked, "Are you their agent?" "Yes." "Wang Ku." "Good. Wang Ku, let's discuss something. I have a distinguished guest who came from afar and likes watching their show. I want to take them out for a midnight snack. Why don't you name a price?" Wang Ku smiled coldly and said, "Young Master Liang, I'm afraid I can't agree to this. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin have worked hard for most of the night and are very tired now. They just said that they wanted to go back to sleep. Why don't we find another opportunity?" Slap. Wang Ku was also slapped in the face. Liang Dechang pointed at Wang Ku and shouted, "Who do you think you are? Don't be shameless. I've already said it today. If you agree, I'll take them. If you don't agree, I'll still take them. I want to see what you can do to me." Ah! Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin hurried forward to support Wang Ku to prevent her from falling to the ground. Jiang Qin took a step forward and said, "You can go. We won't go out with you for a midnight snack." "Little girl, this kind of thing is not up to you to decide." Liang Dechang laughed arrogantly. "The people that I, Liang Dechang, want to take care of have never failed." This sentence is very imposing. I like it. A thin man stood at the door and said with a smile, "I'm the same as you. The people I want to hit have never failed." Chapter 491. Hearing that familiar voice, Jiang Qin was stunned for a moment. She thought that it was her illusion. Just like the countless previous experiences, she would hear Fang Yan's voice when she was in danger. She would hear Fang Yan's voice when she was tired from playing the piano. She would hear Fang Yan's voice when she was shopping alone while drinking tea. And she would hear Fang Yan's voice when she woke up from her dreams. Could it be the same as those mistakes? Another beautiful illusion? Ah! Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin looked over with a puzzled expression. When they found that the thin man standing at the door was indeed the Fang Yan that they were thinking about, their faces immediately bloomed with a moving smile. Mr. Fang came. Mr. Fang really came. Mr. Fang came to enjoy their concert. Mr. Fang listened to their singing and watched their performance. Mr. Fang knew about Jiang Qin's confession on stage and the deep-rooted longing. Mr. Fang. Jiang Qin was shy and happy at the same time. Her eyes were red as she shouted Fang Yan's name. "Mr. Fang, you're here." Yuan Lin cried in surprise. "Why didn't you tell us? We were worried that you didn't have time." "Mr. Fang? Fang Yan?" Wang Ke looked at Fang Yan seriously. He was a handsome man. However, good-looking men were a dime a dozen in the entertainment industry, so it was not unusual. However, Wang Ke did not dare to neglect this young man. He was not only the man that the two little devils Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin kept talking about, but also Miss Xia Tian's close friend. It was said that Miss Xia Tian would take the initiative to visit their home every year during the spring festival. Just based on the last point, she had to give him enough respect and enthusiasm. Wang Ke covered her cheek that was slapped by Liang Dechang and took the initiative to greet Fang Yan and said, "Mr. Fang, I'm Wang Ku, the agent of Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin." These people suddenly broke in and said they wanted to take Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin to eat supper. I refused their rude request, but they still hit me. Oh, Miss Wang. Fang Yan greeted Wang Ku and said, "Don't worry, they can't take anyone away. They can't leave." Perhaps it was because Fang Yan's words were too arrogant, or maybe it was because Fang Yan's expression was too serious when he said it. Liang Dechong and his companions laughed. "Young Master Liang, did you hear that? He said we can't take anyone away, no one can leave. It's so funny, they don't care about us at all. Young Master Liang, this person is very interesting, you can't kill him in one go, you have to keep him and play with him slowly. Who does he think he is? Teacher? No wonder the quality of students nowadays is getting worse. It's because of such a stupid teacher." Fu Lei didn't laugh, he looked at Fang Yan strangely, guessing what relationship he had with the legendary man. "Isn't it funny?" Fang Yan asked with a smile. "It's too funny." Liang Dechong applauded and said, "My brother said we can't kill you too early. That won't be fun." "Your words have reminded me of something." Fang Yan walked toward Liang Dechong step by step and said, "If the game is very fun, it's best not to clear it in one go. Otherwise it's easy to feel down." The smile on Liang Dechong's face became cold, and he stared at Fang Yan with a gaze as vicious as a vulture. He knew what Fang Yan wanted to do, but he didn't care at all because what Fang Yan wanted to do was also what he wanted to do. Without saying anything, the two bodyguards behind Liang Dechong surrounded Fang Yan from both sides. They were the ones who made a move against the security guards outside and got rid of all the people who were blocking the way. "Who?" The man in black on the left didn't say a word and punched at Fang Yan's left temple. The temple was an important point of the human body, but it was also the weak point of the human body. If it was important, it was weak. Fang Yan could sense the strength he used. If this punch was completely hit, it might cause the temple to explode, serious injuries or even death. He wanted to kill Fang Yan, but Fang Yan didn't hold back. Fang Yan also punched. It was a punch later than his punch and a punch lighter than his punch. It was also a punch that was even more casual than the one he had thrown. However, the punch arrived first. Fang Yan punched out and his fist fiercely hit the bridge of the black-clothed man's nose. Crack. The man in black's nose broke and the bones in his face caved in. His body flew out and blood sprayed in the air like a red fountain. At the same time that the man in black on the left flew out, the man in black on the right kicked at Fang Yan's crotch. This kid was even more vicious. He wanted to destroy the roots of Fang Yan's descendants. Bang! Fang Yan clamped his legs and the foot that the man in black kicked over was sandwiched between his legs. The man in black exerted all his strength, but the foot didn't move as if it was inlaid. He couldn't move his lower body and his upper body rushed toward Fang Yan. An uppercut went straight for Fang Yan's eyes. When Fang Yan's eyes hurt, he would naturally let go of his legs. Fang Yan stood where he was without moving. His left hand punched out lightly. Bang! There was a muffled sound. Because one of the man in black's legs was clamped by Fang Yan, his body was fixed in place and he couldn't fly. His upper body fell backward and then he was pulled back at an even faster speed. He looked at Fang Yan in horror and then he opened his mouth and screamed. The man in black's arm made cracking sounds as if every inch of the bones in his arm was breaking. "You have bad breath," Fang Yan said. "Pa." Fang Yan punched out and the man in black finally broke free as he wished. However, his body fell heavily to the ground and then he couldn't get up again. This was what it truly meant to be unstoppable. This was an instant kill in terms of realm. Fang Yan looked at Liang Dechong and asked with a smile, "The mighty young master Liang only brings these two rookie bodyguards when you go out?" "They're not rookies," Liang Dechong said through gritted teeth. "How could they be rookie bodyguards? One of them was a famous fighter in Huaqing's MMA world, and was only recruited by him after he became famous. The other was a member of Mount Song's Shaolin Temple's martial arts team, and used to perform martial arts on stages all over the world. Later, because he couldn't stand poverty, he retired early and became his loyal confidant. Just now, it was the two of them who took care of those annoying bodyguards. At that time, they were full of power and gave people endless confidence. How could they be defeated so easily now?" Fang Yan smiled and said, "These bodyguards aren't rookies. Looks like your definition of rookies is very special." Fang Yan walked toward Liang Dechong again and said, "Do you have any other rookie bodyguards? Or rather, do you have any bodyguards who aren't rookies? If there aren't any, I'm going to beat someone up. I just said I've never failed to beat someone up I wanted to." You won't disappoint me, right? Liang Dechang stared at Fang Yan fiercely and said, Brat, do you know who I am? I know. Liang Dechang. A bastard who's willing to be a pimp in order to please his master. Fang Yan said aloud, only people who beat people up need to announce their name. People who get beaten up don't need to let everyone in the world know who they are, right? I don't care who you are. If you dare to touch a hair on me, I promise I'll let your corpse lie on the street. Really? So I'm dead for sure? Fang Yan pointed at the gauze wrapped around Liang Dechang's forehead and said, I threw that piece of wood. How do you feel now? So it's you. Liang Dechang's anger soared again and he pointed at Fang Yan and scolded, I said I'll make you wish you were dead. Pa. Fang Yan slapped Liang Dechang's face and asked, Is this the feeling of living worse than death that you said? Arisima's concert was over, so Fang Yan didn't have to worry about bringing adverse effects to them. Fang Yan was already furious, and now he witnessed them running to the backstage locker room to snatch people. How could he be merciful? Fang Yan did use a lot of strength in this slap. Liang Dechang only felt a buzzing sound in his ears and his mouth, nose and ears were all bleeding, but his mind was blank and he couldn't hear what Fang Yan said. Mr. Fang, Wang Ku was shocked. Although she had Xia Tian's support, she wasn't afraid of anyone's provocation. She had never hit someone like Fang Yan did. As the saying goes, a powerful dragon can't suppress a local snake. No matter how powerful Xia Tian was in Yanjing City, this was Hua City. If the local snakes in Hua City wanted to ruin your plans and cause trouble for you, you would really be suppressed everywhere. It was easy to see the king of hell but difficult to deal with the little devils. Pa. Fang Yan slapped him again and said, being humiliated by me to the point where you want to die but can't. Is this the feeling of living worse than death that you can't forget? Pa. Fang Yan slapped him again and said, Can you still hear me? It's okay if you can't as long as you know you're still being beaten. When Fang Yan was about to slap him again, Fu Lei finally spoke and shouted, Mr. Fang, wait a minute. Pa. Fang Yan pulled his hand back down in midair and then looked up at Fu Lei and asked, What did you just say? Liang Dechang suffered another solid slap, and when he was about to fall to the ground in a daze, he was supported by his friends behind him. Fu Lei was stunned for a while and said, I said please wait a minute, Mr. Fang, but it doesn't matter now. Then can I continue? Fang Yan said with a smile. He walked towards Liang Dechang again. He had only just warmed up. How could he finish so quickly? Chapter 492. Wait, wait, wait. Fu Lei repeatedly shouted for him to stop. He stood in front of Fang Yan to prevent Fang Yan from beating Liang Dechang, who had lost his ability to speak, and said, Mr. Fang is Teacher Fang Yan? Fang Yan was almost amused by this kid. He looked at Fu Lei and said, This is a very unique way of chatting up people. Yes, I am Fang Yan. I used to be a teacher but now I am a security guard. Fu Lei did not laugh, but looked at Fang Yan with a more serious expression and said, Mr. Fang and young Master Jiang are old friends? Young Master Jiang? Are you talking about that idiot Jiang Junling? Fang Yan asked with a sneer. He didn't like people saying that he and Jiang Junling were old friends. It made it seem like he had absorbed a lot of light just by being with him. As soon as this remark came out, countless people present gasped. They didn't know who Fang Yan was, but it was impossible for them not to know who Jiang Junling was. A son should be like Jiang Junling and an adopted son must be like Qin Yitian. These words were too loud and too intimidating. Whether they had entered that level, come into contact with the characters of that realm or the two protagonists of this sentence, it did not affect their worship and fear of these two characters. What kind of person was Jiang Junling? They knew very well in their hearts. What kind of person was Qin Yitian? They also knew very well in their hearts. Their circle of friends was loose and hierarchical. It was difficult for a millionaire's friend to be a billionaire. In the same way, it was difficult for them to be friends with people in the circle of Jiang Junling and Qin Yitian. From their standpoint, they did not dare to offend those two legendary figures. However, this guy who was called Little Teacher by the Arisima group actually said, Jiang Junling, that idiot. Just based on this sentence alone, if he didn't have enough strength to protect himself, maybe they could go to the Pearl River to retrieve his body tomorrow morning. However, he said it out loud and his face was full of disdain, as if it was shameful to be associated with someone like Jiang Junling. If they were to say that this fellow was just some subject teacher from a school in Huaqing who relied on his looks to deceive girls, they would never believe it. But who was this man? He had never heard of a wealthy family with the surname Fong in Huaqing. There were no wealthy families with the surname Fong in the capital either. Fu Lei's expression changed drastically as if he had heard something inconceivable. Very quickly his expression returned to normal. He looked at Fong Yan with a smile and said, "So it's young Master Fong. I've heard so much about you. Your name is like thunder in my ears. I didn't expect that we would be like a flood crashing into a Dragon King's temple today. One family clashed with another family, young Master Fong, this is a misunderstanding. Today I heard the two young friends from the Arisima group perform and was shocked. Dachang saw that I was delighted and wanted to bridge the gap between us to help me fulfill a wish. We wanted to be friends with these two young friends, but because the attitude of our subordinates was too bad, it caused unnecessary conflicts and misunderstandings." Fu Lei glanced at Liang Dachang and said, "Dachang is a bit too impatient, but he's forthright and loyal. He's not a bad person deep down. Young Master Fong has already punished them. Why don't we just forget about today's matter? We'll prepare a generous gift to apologize to the two young friends from the Arisima group. How about that?" Fong Yan looked at Fu Lei and asked, "You know me? I often heard about the interesting stories between young Master Fong and young Master Jiang even when I was far away in a cold and desolate place. I've always wanted to get to know a young talent like young Master Fong if I had the chance. I didn't expect the hero to be right in front of me, but I didn't recognize him. What a sin." Fu Lei's words were very vague, but the meaning behind his words was very clear. "Since you've already offended young Master Jiang Junling, don't provoke us anymore. It would be good if everyone was friendly. When we teased girls you pretended not to see it. When you hooked up with innocent women we turned a blind eye. Isn't this the way people live in the circle? Hearing that I even dared to slap Jiang Junling, are you starting to feel guilty?" Fong Yan asked with a smile. "And then regret provoking my friend?" Young Master Fong. Fu Lei felt that Fong Yan didn't know how to speak properly. How could he say such a thing on the spot? "Luckily I don't know you," Fong Yan said happily. "Oh, it's so lively here." A bright and heroic voice sounded from the door. Fong Yan turned around and saw Lan Shanggu pushing Lu Shu, who was in a wheelchair, into the locker room. Fu Lei saw Lan Shanggu and shouted happily, "Brother Lan, you're here too? If I knew earlier we could have arranged to meet in the same room to drink wine and listen to classical music. It's a great fun." Lan Shanggu ignored Fu Lei and looked at Fong Yan with a smile. He said, "I don't have anything to do tonight, so I invited Cripple Lu to watch the classical music concert from Arisima." Lan Shanggu looked at Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin and said with a smile, "After all, the two beauties from Arisima are also from Huaqing. It's natural for us to support people from our hometown. Jiang Qin, Yuan Lin, I'm your die-hard fan. You have to give me an autograph later. Otherwise I'll leave Cripple Lu outside the changing room and not let you out. You won't be so cruel to a disabled person, right?" Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin looked at each other. They didn't understand the relationship between Lan Shanggu, Fong Yan and Fu Lei. They just smiled and didn't say anything. Lu Shu's face turned slightly cold. He said, "Lan Shanggu, one day I'll make you shut your stinky mouth completely." "Cripple Lu, do you want to kill me now?" "It's not easy for you to kill me, but I can kill you easily," Lan Shanggu said carelessly. He didn't take Lu Shu's threat seriously at all. Lan Shanggu walked in front of Fong Yan and stood shoulder to shoulder with him. He stared at Fu Lei and the others with the same hatred. He asked, "What happened here? Which blind guy offended our young Master Fong again?" "It's a misunderstanding. It's really a misunderstanding. Brother Lan, please explain to young Master Fong that we just want to make friends with the two girls from Arisima. We don't have any other intentions." Fu Lei didn't expect Lan Shanggu to also come to this concert. But this was also good. The Fu clan and the Lan clan had some relationship and the two clans often had business dealings. With a heavyweight like Lan Shanggu helping to slow things down, presumably Fong Yan wouldn't dare to kill them again. As for Liang Dachang, this kind of guy with bad character, he should just treat this beating as a lesson. Why did he talk to me about Arisima for no reason? Now that he brought trouble to my doorstep, I'm already being kind by not letting him bear the responsibility. Lan Shanggu sneered and said, "Fu Lei, do you think I don't know your tricks? If you're wrong, you're wrong. If you're wrong, you have to admit it. It's one thing to do something wrong, but you still have to bear the responsibility after doing something wrong. If you should apologize, you have to apologize. If you should compensate for the loss, you have to compensate for the loss. Lan Shanggu naturally had the intention of interceding on Fu Lei's behalf. He wanted Fu Lei to apologize and compensate for the loss. These were just some insignificant punishments, because he knew very well that if Fang Yan took action, things naturally wouldn't be so easy to solve. Lu Shu sneered and said, "Using young Master Fang's matter as a gift, Lan Shanggu, you really have a good plan." Fang Yan glanced at Lan Shanggu and said, "No. Things shouldn't be handled like this." Fang Yan pointed at Fu Lei and said, "Just now in the VIP room on the second floor, he and Liang Dechong were discussing how to get the two girls from Arisima. I'm too embarrassed to repeat those obscene words." Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin looked at each other, and their faces were smeared with a layer of red. They knew what those obscene words Fang Yan said were referring to. Although they had the protection of Xia Tian, they rarely encountered situations where they were bullied. But occasionally, some words that reached their ears would still make them extremely angry. But this was the ecology of the entertainment circle. Even Xia Tian couldn't change the rules and purify the environment. He could only ensure that the people around him wouldn't be assimilated. I had already punished them at that time. I didn't expect them to be so daring that they forcefully ran into the room after the concert to snatch people. Fang Yan pointed at Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin and said, "Unfortunately, the Mr. Fang they were talking about on stage was me. They were both my students." "Young master, what do you mean?" The smile on Lan Shanggu's face disappeared. He looked at Fang Yan with a serious expression and asked aloud. Fang Yan walked towards Fu Lei step by step, and Fu Lei's body began to retreat. He had seen Fang Yan's skills and knew that he was far from being his opponent. He originally thought that those young masters who had been fawning over him would stand up and help him, but even when he retreated to the corner of the wall, he didn't touch anyone's body. Those guys had already retreated to the sides. Fang Yan grabbed Fu Lei's neck and lifted his body up from the ground. Fu Lei's face turned purple and his body couldn't move at all. Clang! Fang Yan's knee ruthlessly attacked Fu Lei's lower abdomen. Fu Lei's body curled up like a shrimp. His face turned black and purple as if he had serious food poisoning. His mouth couldn't speak, but a large amount of food and liquid flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Fang Yan was worried that the compound would flow to the back of his hand, so he threw Fu Lei's body on the ground with some disdain. Then he kicked over and over again. Bang! 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 Every time Fang Yan kicked out, Fu Lei would scream along with it. His body curled up on the ground, his hands tightly hugging the important parts of his head. He looked even more miserable than a beggar. Every time Fang Yan kicked out, the bodies of the young masters of Hua City who were watching from the side would also tremble. The person lying on the ground was the young master Fu Lei, whom they had been trying their best to fawn over. In the blink of an eye, he was being kicked and beaten like a dog. This Mr. Fang, what kind of pervert was he? Did he know the rules? Did he have any dignity? Too unfriendly. Bang! 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 Fang Yan kicked more than 10 times until Fu Lei lay on the ground motionless. Then he turned to look at Lan Shanggu and asked, "What did you say just now? What is the relationship between you, friends?" Chapter 493. What is the relationship between you two, friends? He saw him make a move, saw him choke, saw him kick a person to the point where it was unclear whether he was dead or alive. Lan Shanggu suddenly felt a strong sense of crisis. This was Fang Yan's response to his forceful intercession and his expression of dissatisfaction with his attitude. Fang Yan was dissatisfied with himself because he had stretched his hand too far. Was it just because of this? Probably wasn't that simple, right? Or did he also know about the flirting between the Lan family and the Jiang family? Lan Shanggu felt bitter. At the Blue Mountain Club, Jiang Junling said in front of him that he was going to visit the Lan family's old master. Jiang Junling didn't break his promise and went to visit the Lan family with generous gifts the next afternoon. The Lan family also secretly gave Jiang Junling the highest treatment. The Lan family's old master, who hadn't seen guests for a long time, personally accompanied Jiang Junling to drink tea in the study. Because of Lan Shanggu's special status in the Lan family, he was lucky enough to stay in the study and become one of the companions. Jiang Junling once again proposed the idea of joining forces with the Lan family to invest in Longtu Group. The Lan family's old master agreed after a moment of hesitation. Both sides would invest $1 billion and work together to expand Longtu Group. then they would share the fruits of victory. In Longtu Group, the Lan family would be one of the 3 major shareholders. With the Jiang family, Jiang Zhulu would exercise the same important rights. Jiang Junling expressed his admiration for the Lan family's foresight and thanked the old master for encouraging and guiding the young people. Both sides had a good talk. Jiang Junling left after dinner and Lan Shanggu immediately entered the old master's study to talk to his secret agent. Lan Shanggu strongly requested the old master to give up the cooperation plan with the Jiang family and work hard to play the role of a pure seller of Chaoyan technology. The old master had a different view on this. He thought that the Lan family shouldn't put all their eggs in the same basket. If the Lan family invested in Longtu Group, they would become one of the 3 major shareholders of Longtu Group, a new energy industry. With the vigorous development of the energy industry, the Lan family would become the decision-maker in this field and not just the errand slave of a certain family. Yes, the Lan family was just a lower-tier seller of Chaoyan technology. Chaoyan technology could use you, but they could also kick you away. The old master's worries were not without reason. What's more, if Longtu Group was really successful, it could also create pressure on Chaoyan technology, increasing their own weight in front of Chaoyan technology and Fang Yan and Lu Chaoga. Most importantly, any business that could make money was a good business, so why not? What the old master said made sense, but Lan Shanggu knew that things weren't that simple. With Fang Yan and Lu Chaoga's personalities, how could they possibly allow the Lan clan to be two-timing? Lan Shanggu and the old master had conflicting views and a fierce conflict broke out between them. Lan Shanggu cared about the reactions of Fang Yan and Lu Chaoga, but the old master cared more about the support of the Jiang family. At that time, the old master sat on the armchair, looked at Lan Shanggu and said something meaningful. No matter how hard Fang Yan works, no matter how Chaoyan develops, the Fang family can't be the Jiang family, and Chaoyan technology can't be the Jiang family's business. Yes, the old master didn't think that the young and energetic Fang Yan had any chance of winning against the 1,000-year-old Jiang family. This had nothing to do with ability or talent. He just lost in terms of time. Lan Shanggu was the future heir of the Lan family, but his future had yet to come. The importance of Lan Shanggu in the Lan family was decided by the old master, and what the old master decided was what the Lan family decided. Therefore, the matter of the Lan family and the Jiang family jointly investing in Longtu Group was being discussed and carried out in secret. Now, had Fang Yan raised a big stick to beat them up? During the process of Fang Yan beating up young Master Fu Lei, the entire changing room was silent. Other than heavy breathing, no one said anything or made a sound to stop it. Lu Shu sat steadily on the wheelchair, a cold smile on his lips. No one knew if he was mocking Fu Lei's stupidity or the cleverness of this matter. The other young masters' faces were as white as paper, and the timid one's legs were trembling. Even standing straight was a difficult task for them. Every time Fang Yan kicked Wang Ku, the manager of Planet Blue, his heart would tremble. When Fang Yan was done, her body stopped trembling. She had been in the entertainment industry for many years and had seen all kinds of people. But she had never met a man with a personality like Fang Yan. This kind of person had a vicious mouth and was ruthless. He didn't know how to compromise, didn't know how to be mellow, and wasn't suitable to be in the industry. It was easy to offend people. Wang Ku turned to look at Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin, wanting to persuade them to stay away from this dangerous man. But when she saw Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin's excited faces and stars in their eyes, she gave up the idea. They probably wouldn't listen to any bad things she said about Fang Yan. Aren't they your friends? Fang Yan looked at Lan Shanyu and asked again. What was the point of asking such a question after the fight? Or rather, it had a deeper meaning than asking such a question before the fight. Lan Shanyu laughed and said, "To be honest, young master, the Fu family is our business partner. The Fu family has been operating in Mo Bay for a long time, and they have quite a few mines with good quality. The Lan family imports ores from the Fu family. Because of this, Fu Lei and I have known each other since we were young. But we have been too busy these years, so we haven't seen each other much. I didn't expect him to do such an animal thing tonight. If not for young master's timely discovery, the 2 classical music masters of our City of Flowers would have been destroyed by him. Such an idiot, even if young master taught him a lesson, it wouldn't be enough. When I go back, I will definitely call Uncle Fu and ask him to teach Fu Lei a lesson." Fang Yan looked at Lan Shanyu and said gently, "Fu Lei is your good friend, it's natural for you to speak up for him. If you don't help your good friend when he is in trouble, then I will start to suspect you of being a heartless person. But you didn't speak up at the right time. He just made a mistake and came to cause trouble for my two friends. If I let him go because of one sentence from you and let this matter go, isn't the cost of his mistake too low? Just because he knows Lan Shanyu, he can do whatever he wants. If he knows Lan Shanyu in every city, does that mean he can do this in every city? I didn't think it through and let young master laugh at me. Lan Shanyu apologized sincerely. That's a little harsh, Fang Yan said with a smile. I will teach him a lesson and let him receive the punishment he deserves. I will let him know that if he does bad things he must be prepared to be caught. Lan Shanyu's heart skipped a beat. Fang Yan had already said it so clearly. If he still didn't understand what he meant, then he wouldn't deserve to be one of the 4 talents of Huaqing. A prodigal who repents is more valuable than gold. All mistakes can be corrected, Lan Shanyu said in a low voice. I believe Fu Lei already understands this. Not only did Fu Lei understand, but he also understood. Since Fang Yan didn't say it clearly, it meant that he didn't want to fall out with the Lan family. This way he could still put in some effort in the middle. If Fang Yan directly asked why the Lan family wanted to cooperate with the Jiang family, it meant that there was no turning back. I also hope that he can understand. Fang Yan nodded, then said self-deprecatingly, after being a teacher for a year, I've developed a bad habit of educating people. That's not good. How is this educating people? Young master's words are priceless advice. Those without connections won't have the chance to learn, Lan Shanyu said fawningly. Those who understand will think it's priceless advice. Those who don't understand will think it's full of nonsense. Fang Yan pointed at Fu Lei and said, all right, since Shanyu has spoken, I have to give you face. I won't break his arms and legs, but I won't destroy his life. Take him away. Thank you, young master, Lan Shanyu said with a smile. He waved his hand and 2 black-clothed men immediately rushed over from behind, picked up Fu Lei from the ground and walked out. Lan Shanyu looked at Fang Yan and said, young master, I won't disturb you anymore. Go do what you need to do, Fang Yan said with a smile. Lan Shanyu was still in the mood to greet Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin and said, Jiang Qin, Yuan Lin, you guys owe me an autograph. I'll remember this. I won't forget, Yuan Lin said with a smile. Lan Shanyu walked in front of the willow tree and said, Cripple, are you coming with me? The willow tree chuckled and said, the exciting show is over, what's the point of staying? Go, of course I'm leaving. Thus Lan Shanyu pushed the willow tree and left. The other young masters supported Liang Dachong and followed closely behind. Everyone was very careful when passing by Fang Yan, afraid that they would accidentally anger Fang Yan, and then they would become Liang Dachong or Fu Lei. This guy was really ruthless. When everyone had left, Wang Ku looked at Fang Yan with a smile and said, Mr. Fang, thank you for helping us out. If you hadn't appeared in time, I really don't know what would have happened. You see, it's already very late and Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin have been busy for the whole night. Why don't we let these 2 girls go back to the hotel to rest? Fang Yan felt that what Wang Ku said was very reasonable and was about to nod in agreement when Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin ran over and hugged Fang Yan's arms. Jiang Qin looked at Fang Yan with a sweet smile and said, Mr. Fang, I'm not tired. I'll go with you wherever you go. Yuan Lin also said with a smile, I really want to eat Huaqing's seafood barbecue. Why don't we treat Mr. Fang to something? Wang Ku's face was full of helplessness and said, then I'll arrange for the driver to send you there. Chapter 494. I'm not dead, am I? Fu Lei turned over his body and immediately cried out in pain. He felt like all the bones in his body were about to fall apart. His stomach, shoulders, back, buttocks and head, every part of his body was in pain, excruciating pain. Knowing pain means you won't die for now. An eerie voice rang out beside him. Fu Lei climbed up from his seat and saw Lan Shanggu sitting in the front row. He couldn't help but grin and said, Brother Lan, only when I see you do I know I'm still alive. That bastard was really ruthless, he almost killed me. There's not a single part of my body that's fine now. Do you know how lucky you are to still have the chance to sit here and talk to me? Lan Shanggu said expressionlessly, if I didn't coincidentally go to Arasima's concert, if I didn't coincidentally go to the artist's dressing room, do you know what would have happened to you? All fate isn't fate, all coincidences aren't coincidences. Can he really kill me? Fu Lei sneered. A life for a life. Does he have the guts? A life for a life? Someone has to prove that he did it first. Lan Shanggu's face was full of sarcasm. Even if he doesn't kill you, breaking one of your legs and destroying your offsprings is something he can still do. He's too arrogant. Why? Fu Lei said viciously, Brother Lan, you people are just going to watch him do whatever he wants in Huaqing? You've already spoken up for me, but he won't even give you face. Who does he think he is? Lan Shanggu sighed, because he's Fang Yan. Fu Lei searched for a long time but couldn't find his glasses. Looks like he lost them when he was beaten. He took out a silk handkerchief from his pocket and wiped the wounds on his face, saying coldly, evil people need to be dealt with. Someone has to stand up and teach him a lesson. Otherwise, he'll never be able to find his place. Lan Shanggu suddenly turned around and stared fiercely at Fu Lei, saying, Young Master Fu, don't play the game you like in Mo Bay. Watching has its own rules. Are you scared? Even Jiang Junling couldn't do anything to him. Who do you think you are? Lan Shanggu said with a serious expression. Furthermore, he is far more dangerous than you can imagine. If you really want to deal with him, then get out of my car immediately. The Lan family will cut off all business with the Fu family. Of course, after you get out of the car, I will give him a call and kindly remind him to be careful of your revenge. Fu Lei's expression flickered for a moment before he burst into laughter. He covered his throbbing cheek and said, I'm just joking. Why is Brother Lan so serious? Don't joke with me about such things, Lan Shanggu said with a smile. Fu Lei looked at Lanshan Valley and asked, You really can't move? We really can't move. Lan Shanggu said firmly. This kid is really ruthless. Fu Lei sighed. The Lan Mountain Valley had many other luxurious residences outside, but tonight, they returned to the Lan clan's old residence in the North Sea Plains. Lan Shanggu's car stopped in the courtyard. He asked the butler who came out to greet him, Is Grandpa asleep? Master just wrote a piece of calligraphy. He drank some milk and was about to sleep. The butler smiled and said, Valley, why are you back today? I'm going to talk to Grandpa, Lan Shanggu said. Young master, the butler stopped him. It's late. Master is about to sleep. If it's not something urgent, we can talk tomorrow morning. Something urgent. Lan Shanggu ignored the butler's obstruction and quickly walked to his grandpa's bedroom. After Lan Shanggu finished speaking, the old man sitting at the head of the bed asked, This is his reaction? This is his reaction. Lan Shanggu said, The Lan family and the Jiang family made such a big move. How can he not know? So what if he knows? Grandpa Lan asked. Could it be that Fang Yan is so impressive that he only allows the Lan clan to follow behind him and wag our tails and beg for mercy, but we can't run other businesses? Grandpa, it's not that we can't run other businesses. It's just that we don't need to run the energy business anymore. Wasn't the Lu family's ending bad enough? The Jiang family is split up. Who still respects them now? Why does the Lan family have to get involved in this mess? The old man sighed softly and said, Valley, you're still too shallow. You need more practice. Grandpa, give up. As long as we maintain a good relationship with Chao Yan, we can become the biggest beneficiary of the energy industry. Why must we jump into the battlefield and fight with others? That's not something we're good at. Only by fighting with others can we become the biggest beneficiary. The old man said firmly, Valley, it's decided. I'm old and tired. I'll leave the future to you. Your biggest weakness is that you're too young. Your biggest strength is also that you're too young. Young people should have the vigor and drive of young people. You can't always guard the city like this. Lan Shanggu knew that his objection failed again. Grandpa was still more optimistic about the future of the Jiang family. Yes, the Jiang family had been standing for 1,000 years. How could a small company that had been established for 2 or 3 years compete with them? In 1,000 years, how many challengers had the Jiang family met? And the result? The Jiang family was still the Jiang family. The graves of those challengers were already covered with thorny trees and weeds. Would Fang Yan really be an exception? Of course, there was no need for a driver arranged by Wang Ku. That was no different from having a spy by his side. Fang Yan drove Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin to the barbecue stall under Haizhu Bridge. In the past, Fang Yan often ate supper with them there. Both of them couldn't forget the seafood barbecue there. These days, supper, like comrade, miss, and godfather, had become a word that had been ruined. Modern people imposed another meaning on it. Fu Lei and Liang Dechang wanted to treat Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin to supper, but Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin were unwilling. Fang Yan wanted them to rest early, but the two girls insisted on treating Fang Yan to supper. It had to be said that this was really a humorous matter. Mr. Fang, why did you want to come to our concert? If you want to come, just let us know. We'll reserve the front of the stage for you. Mr. Fang, what do you think of our performance tonight? Which program do you like the most? I'm guessing it must be Swallow Dock, right? That's because the name of this song is about your swallow dock. Mr. Fang, did you hear Honey confess to you on the stage? She said she misses you so much. Hee, am I the third wheel between you two? The two girls were a little older, but they still maintained their lively nature. Since they got in the car, they had been chattering non-stop, and because of the more experiences they had, the bolder their topics were. Yuan Lin also teased the relationship between Fang Yan and Jiang Qin from time to time. On the contrary, it was Jiang Qin who became a little shy because Yuan Lin saw through his thoughts. Just now she did stand on the stage and boldly confessed. She thought it was just a simple interaction with her fans, but she didn't expect that the person involved was also at the scene. Fang Yan concentrated on driving, enjoying this long-awaited gathering of friends. I like every program of yours very much. Fang Yan said with a smile. I watched you walk on this road with my own eyes. At that time, you were still ignorant children, but now you have become the idols in the hearts of countless people. I didn't expect you to progress so fast, and I didn't expect you to be so talented in classical instruments. I arrived at the scene very early, looking forward to your appearance with the other fans, looking forward to the surprise you brought us. Not only did you bring surprises, but you also brought shock. As your teacher, I am really proud of you. Mr. Fang, are you still a teacher at Rosefinch Secondary? Jiang Qin asked. Oh. Fang Yan said. You left Rosefinch? Jiang Qin exclaimed. But it doesn't matter, you can go wherever you like. I'm still at Rosefinch. Fang Yan said, but I'm no longer a teacher, I'm a security guard. When they arrived at the familiar seafood stall, Fang Yan parked the car and then walked inside with Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin. The people of Huaqing liked to eat barbecue, drink cold beer and chat in the open air, but Fang Yan insisted on bringing the two girls into the private room inside. They were originally delicate and cute, and now they were members of the famous Arisima group. If their fans saw this, they might not be able to eat in peace again. Yuan Lin didn't like eating in the private room, so she said pitifully, I thought that when I returned to my hometown, I could sit at the stall and eat seafood and drink beer without caring about my image, but I didn't expect this wish to come true. Fang Yan looked at her with a smile and said, Who asked you to be a big star now? Sigh, this feeling is really... Yuan Lin thought about it seriously and said, It's sweet and burdensome. Jiang Qin took the menu and ordered the grilled oysters and conch that Fang Yan liked to eat, and the sori, kebabs, eggplant and corn that Yuan Lin liked to eat. He also ordered his favorite chicken feet and sea white bean sprouts. He also took the initiative to order 3 mugs of beer, preparing to drink one each with Fang Yan and Yuan Lin. Jiang Qin handed the menu to the waiter, then sat at the side and quietly looked at Fang Yan. Fang Yan turned his face towards her, and she immediately blushed and moved her face to the side. Yuan Lin burst out laughing, then looked at Fang Yan and asked, Mr. Fang, now that Qin and I have to call you teacher, if you marry Qin in the future, will I have to call Qin master's wife? Yuan Lin, watch me tear your mouth. Jiang Qin was extremely shy and she pounced over to grab Yuan Lin's little mouth. Yuan Lin hurriedly jumped up to dodge and played hide-and-seek with Jiang Qin along the table. She said, If you don't want to, then I'll marry Mr. Fang and you have to call me master's wife. Fang Yan felt that he couldn't sit still anymore. How could she bully an honest person like this? Chapter 495. Ding dang. The 3 glasses of beer collided with each other and made a crisp sound. Cheers to your results, Fang Yan said. Cheers to our reunion in 3 years, Jiang Qin said. Yuan Lin giggled and said, Cheers to the future when you have to call me master's wife. Not sure if it was because there weren't many customers, but the food that Fang Yan and the others ordered was quickly served. It was the same old restaurant with the same familiar smell. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin seemed to have missed the seafood barbecue in Huaqing for a long time. As soon as the oysters were served, the two grabbed one each and ate them greedily. The shells outside were heated up by the charcoal fire, and the two were so hot that they couldn't bear to put them down. Slow down, be careful not to get burned, Fang Yan said with a smile. Wouldn't it be embarrassing if your fans saw your gluttonous faces? I don't care about them, Yuan Lin said coquettishly. The oysters outside don't taste like home. The food at home is still the best. Exactly. When we were in Yanjing, Yuan Lin always talked about the oysters at home and the soy sauce pork trotters made by my mom. Jiang Qin sucked the juice on his finger and said, Mr. Fong, you haven't eaten at my house for a long time, right? My mom always talks about you. Fang Yan nodded and said, I just returned to Huaqing and have a few urgent matters to deal with. I haven't had the time to visit Sister Li and Uncle Jiang. If you go visit your parents, you have to visit mine too. Yuan Lin buried her head in her food and said without lifting her head. Otherwise it's not fair. My mom has been talking about you too. Every time you call me, you'll ask me how your teacher Fong is doing. If he has time, ask him to come over and have a meal or something. Teacher Fong, aren't you embarrassed to say no? That doesn't make sense, Fang Yan said with a puzzled expression. What's unreasonable? Yuan Lin asked. You're still so young, why would they worry that you won't be able to get married? Who's worried? My mother is not worried at all. Yuan Lin said proudly, there are many men who like me. Then why are they in such a hurry for me to visit them? Fang Yan asked with a smile. That's because you are our benefactor. At first we wanted to study music, but our family didn't agree. Now that they see that we have achieved such outstanding results, they naturally want to thank you properly. Yuan Lin explained with a serious expression. Then she looked at Fang Yan with a face full of joy and exclaimed, Mr. Fong, it feels great that you're willing to eat barbecue, drink beer and chat with us. I don't want to either, Fang Yan said with a smile. You dragged me here by force. What could I do? If it can make you happy, we'll pull you out every day, Jiang Qin said. Mr. Fong, you don't know how annoying you used to be. Yuan Lin and I said 100 words to you and you wouldn't respond to us. We said ours and you thought of your own. You completely treated us like transparent people. Sorry, don't say sorry. Jiang Qin interrupted Fang Yan's words and said, as long as you're happy, we're willing to suffer any grievances. After eating and drinking their fill, they promised to meet again the next day. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin finally agreed to let Fang Yan let them go back to the hotel to rest. They had been in high-intensity rehearsals for the past few days, and they had performed on stage for more than 2 hours tonight. Their physical strength had long been exhausted. The joy of seeing Fang Yan had supported them until now. As their stomachs were full, their brains began to lack oxygen, and it was difficult for them to keep their eyes open. Yuan Lin ran out to pay the bill. This little rich woman had always maintained a good habit of paying the bill first. Looking at the seafood sign above her head, Su Qi said with a smile, Teacher Kai, let's sit here. Baldy looked at the sign and said, okay, let's eat here. I like this place and I used to often gather here with the teachers from school. As long as you don't order crabs, everything else will be fine. Su Qi pursed her lips and said, Teacher Kai, we've agreed that this meal is on me. You can order whatever you want, whether it's crabs, lobsters or abalones. You've been with me for so long today, so it's only right that I treat you to a meal. Baldy sat down on an empty table with some apprehension. Even now it still felt unreal. She asked in a low voice, that, Su Qi, are you? Su Qi was looking at the menu. Hearing Baldy's words, she asked in confusion, Teacher Kai, what are you talking about? Are you going to do something to you? You're not trying to hit on me, are you? Baldy asked with a vigilant expression. Su Qi, let's be clear. I admit that you're really beautiful and I quite like you. But the school has a rule that teachers and students are not allowed to be in a relationship. I'm a great teacher. Teacher Kai, security isn't a teacher. I'm not done yet. I'm a great teacher, security guard, and I'm responsible for Rose Finch's safety. I can't, and I'm not allowed to take the lead in breaking the school's rules, Baldy said in a sad voice. Su Qi, just give up on me. There will be better things waiting for you in the future. We're not compatible. Su Qi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She said, Teacher Kai, you're thinking too much. I don't mean that. I just want to treat you to a simple meal. By the way, you said that you used to gather here with your colleagues. Did Mr. Fong come with you? Fang Yan? Why do you keep mentioning him? I'm just asking casually. There's no point in asking. I've already told you that Mr. Fong is taken now, and other people can only look at him from outside the courtyard. He has a handsome appearance and an outstanding temperament in the crowd. How can a godlike man like that be touched by any woman? He's like the most precious jewel that only our old leader, Principal Lu, is qualified to have. Are they married? Su Qi asked with a sigh. Oh. Baldy looked at Su Qi with hostility and said, even if they're not married, it has nothing to do with you. You should just give up on this idea. Order the dishes, order the crabs, 3 of them weighing 8 ounces. Order the lobsters, 3 of them that are a foot long. Order the abalones, 2 or 3 of them, 3 to 5 of them. I'm hungry. Baldy was very angry. He felt that young girls nowadays were so annoying. They didn't like men of the same age as them, but they wanted mature uncles like them. Girl, the uncles don't ask. Su Qi was a little depressed, but she still generously ordered the crabs, lobsters and abalones for Baldy. She felt that it was not enough, so she ordered 5 or 6 kinds of expensive seafood from the seafood stall. Baldy's heart was filled with a sense of guilt. He felt that he shouldn't have said it so straightforwardly. Su Qi sat there in a daze without saying anything, and Baldy didn't know what to say. The process of waiting for the dishes to be served was a long time. Baldy had to take out his phone and read online novels. Eating the fish with pickled cabbage and fish at the school gate and reading the urban novels written by Liu Xiaohui were one of his few hobbies. Fang Yan went out with the 2 little girls, Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin, and saw Su Qi and Baldy sitting at the entrance of the seafood stall from afar. Fang Yan was hesitating whether to greet them or not, but Baldy seemed to have sensed it and raised his head. His eyes were puzzled at first, but then he pushed the chair away and jumped up with a face full of surprise. As if he felt that his behavior was very uncivilized, Baldy became sneaky again. He went straight to the front of Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin, and with a flushed face he stammered and asked, "Excuse me, are you Arasima?" Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin were shocked. They thought, why did I meet a fan at this time? There were so many people eating at the food stall at the entrance. If I let him shout, wouldn't it alarm everyone? When Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin were hesitating whether to admit it or not, Fang Yan had already stood in front of Baldy and said, "Baldy, why are you here?" Baldy suddenly saw Fang Yan and exclaimed, "Mr. Fang, why are you here?" It seemed that this guy only had eyes for the Arasima group. He actually ignored his old friend who was walking in the front. "Why can't I be here?" Fang Yan said angrily. "Why are you here?" Baldy said angrily. Seeing Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin following closely behind Fang Yan, Baldy became even angrier and said, "How can you be here? How can you be like this? I already said that I will come out to block those crazy bees and butterflies for you, and you go back to take care of Principal Lu. Everyone will work together for a better life in the future. But why did you sneak out? And with such a beautiful girl. If you don't know how to love yourself, what's the point of my efforts?" Fang Yan hesitated whether he should knock this crazy guy out or not. Jiang Qin looked at Baldy with puzzled eyes and asked, "Mr. Fang, is this your friend?" "My school colleague," Fang Yan said. "Also a friend." Baldy's expression changed very quickly. He looked at Jiang Qin with a face full of smiles and said, "Miss Jiang Qin, nice to meet you. I'm Mr. Fang Yan's colleague and also his best friend." "Nice to meet you." Jiang Qin took the initiative to shake Baldy's hand. Baldy's face suddenly turned red. He wiped his palm on his clothes again and again before carefully shaking Jiang Qin's hand. He said excitedly, "Miss Jiang Qin, nice to meet you too. You're even prettier than in reality. Am I not in reality right now?" Jiang Qin asked slyly. "I'm talking about reality." "No, I'm talking about TV." Yuan Lin also shook hands with Baldy. Baldy was so happy that he didn't even know he was Baldy. Su Qi walked over and saw the Arasima group that was very close to Fang Yan. Su Qi looked at Fang Yan and asked, "Mr. Fang, the person you said is braver than me, is it one of them?" Chapter 496. Fang Yan didn't expect to meet Baldy, nor did he expect Baldy to be with Su Qi. Moreover, the 2 of them would go to the food stall for supper. The scene of the 2 of them standing together was so beautiful that Fang Yan couldn't imagine it. Hearing Su Qi's question, Fang Yan raised his eyebrows slightly, smiled at Su Qi and said indifferently, "It's not them." Su Qi was stunned for a moment. "Not them? If it's not them, then who is it?" Even Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin of the Arasima group weren't the woman who could make his heart palpitate. Then, what kind of woman could occupy such an important position? Suchi was really curious but also really unwilling. What kind of man is this? She felt that he was different from the first time they met. His appearance was handsome but his temperament was deep. For such a young man to have such a calm temperament, it was indeed a very strange thing. His eyes were very clean, but there was endless anger hidden in the depths of his eyes. He was like a child who was wronged but didn't know who to vent his anger to. His gentle and elegant side was like the sea, making people involuntarily drown in it. His ruthless and cold side was like a flame, burning fiercely, making people aware of the danger, but couldn't help but want to turn into a moth and fly away. She originally thought that he was just an ordinary person with charm, but now she found out that he had a close relationship with the Arisima group. Such a person was only a security guard at Rosefinch Secondary. Wasn't this the most absurd thing in the world? While Suchi and Fang Yan were talking, Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin were also looking at Suchi. She was a very beautiful girl, just like herself when she was young. Moreover, this girl had an air of nobility about her, and it was obvious that she wasn't born in an ordinary family. Yuan Lin was an expert in this area. She could easily tell from the stitches of the girl's skirt, the fabric of the shoes, and the style of the bag she carried with her, that this girl's outfit was worth at least 100,000 Wuxia dollars. The two women looked at each other with a tacit understanding that they were on each other's side. Hearing the strange conversation between Fang Yan and Suchi, Yuan Lin asked, "Mr. Fang, what are you talking about?" "Speaking of an old friend," Fang Yan said with a smile. "Is that so? Do we know each other?" asked Yuan Lin. Fang Yan nodded. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin had met Qin Etian before. "Is it Sister Qin?" Jiang Qin was smart and immediately understood who the girl was. Suchi had used adjectives like braver than her. Qin Etian was undoubtedly the bravest girl they had ever met. "Oh, Sister Yi is also very brave." Fang Yan didn't answer Jiang Qin's question. Instead, he looked at Suchi and said, "You haven't eaten yet, right? We'll go first. You should go back and rest early after eating." Then he said to Baldy, "Baldy, you must ensure Suchi's safety." After saying that, he walked toward the parking lot. "Wait a minute," shouted Baldy angrily. Fang Yan turned around and looked at Baldy, asking, "Is there anything else?" Baldy's face was flushed. He walked to Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin and asked in a low voice, "Excuse me, can I take a picture with you?" Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin nodded. So Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin, one on the left and one on the right, accompanied Baldy to take a picture. Because Baldy was too shy, he bowed his head and was too embarrassed to look at the camera when taking the picture. This picture made Baldy look too wretched, like a robber who was arrested by two beautiful policewomen. Fang Yan left with Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin, leaving Suchi in deep thought. "That Sister Qin, what kind of person is she?" Suchi asked. "She's not a person." Baldy was still immersed in the glory of taking a picture with his idol. He said casually, "She's a goddess." As usual, Fang Yan woke up at 6 in the morning. When he opened the window and was about to change into his exercise clothes to go to the backyard, he saw a black Mercedes-Benz parked in front of the villa. A cold sneer appeared at the corner of Fang Yan's mouth, then he quietly walked downstairs. At this time, Lu Chaoga hadn't woken up yet. He didn't want to disturb her rest. Fang Yan walked to the window of the Mercedes-Benz and looked inside. Then he gently knocked on the window. The window quickly opened. Lan Shanggu, who had just woken up from his sleep, rubbed his eyes and said embarrassedly, "Young Master Fang, I'm sorry I fell asleep while waiting. When did you get here?" Fang Yan asked. "Last night." Lan Shanggu opened the door and got out of the car. The bones in his body were cracking. He had maintained the same posture in the car for far too long. "Come in and have a cup of coffee," Fang Yan said. Fang Yan personally brewed a pot of coffee. He carried it to the living room and poured a cup for Lan Shanggu. Lan Shanggu quickly thanked him. Fang Yan held a cup and smelled the rich aroma of the coffee. He asked, "You didn't come to see me last night just to get a cup of coffee, did you?" The coffee had a rich aroma, but when it entered his mouth, there was a strong astringent bitterness. The coffee was bitter, but Lan Shanggu's heart was even more bitter. Lan Shanggu looked at Fang Yan with a serious expression and said, "Young master, I'm here to apologize to you." "Apologize? Is it because of helping Fu Lei?" "That's already in the past, you didn't do anything wrong," Fang Yan said. "Young master, it's something else," Lan Shanggu said. The Lan clan is preparing to invest in Longtu together with the Jiang clan, increasing their investment in Longtu Group. So, my portion of the shares will be diluted? Unless I also invest, otherwise I won't have much say in Longtu, is that right? Yes, Lan Shanggu said honestly. This is a good thing for the Lan clan. Fang Yan looked at Lan Shanggu thoughtfully and said, everyone knows that the energy industry will be booming, but the threshold for this field is too high. Normal people can't get in. If the Lan clan can accept this admission ticket from the Jiang clan, it will be a huge boost to the Lan clan's future development. The Jiang clan is really generous to the Lan clan. After the death of the Jiang clan's elephant, he was actually willing to cut off the fattest thigh for you. Lan Shanggu didn't think that Fang Yan was praising him. He stared at Fang Yan with burning eyes and asked, what do you think, young Master Fang? What do I think? Fang Yan squinted his eyes and smiled. What opinion can I have? I'm an outsider. I don't have the right to decide the Lan clan's matters. If that's the case, you'll have to blame me for not being sensible. I know what to do, Lan Shanggu said with a heavy voice as if he had made a huge decision. Fang Yan patted Lan Shanggu's shoulder and smiled. Have some coffee. My cooking is not bad. I won't disappoint you. Lan Shanggu took a sip and smiled. Young Master Fang never disappoints us. The news that Lan Shanggu wanted to separate from the Lan clan quickly spread throughout Huaqing. He's a madman. A complete and utter madman. Is he *king crazy? The Lan clan was originally the future successor of the Lan clan. Who is he going to separate from? Split his own clan? What is Lan Shanggu trying to do? What is the Lan clan trying to do? I don't understand, I really don't understand. Lan Shanggu looks like a madman, but he's actually a madman. Madmen are the scariest. The Lan clan's old mansion. All the important figures of the Lan clan gathered together. Other than third uncle who was far away in Beijing and fifth uncle and fifth aunt who were far away in America, this was the most complete gathering of the clan. Bang! Old Master Lan gently placed the teacup in his hand on the table. Although his movements were very gentle, it still seemed too loud and clear when everyone was even breathing cautiously. Old Master Lan looked at Lan Shanggu, who was kneeling in the middle of the central room, and asked in a hoarse voice, have you decided? No decision. No decision. Lan Shanggu's father, Lan Ling, jumped out and knelt beside Lan Shanggu. He said anxiously, Dad, Shanggu is usually crazy. This time he's even more sick. I'll bring him back and have a good talk with him. Dad, don't be angry. If you're not happy, just beat him up and scold him. Let him have a taste of our Lan clan's family rules. That's enough. Old Master Lan waved his hand and said impatiently, I'm asking about Shanggu. What are you doing here? Is Shanggu still a child? Dad, Shanggu is a child, bastard. Old Master Lan was angry. If he's a child, will the future of the Lan clan be in his hands? If he's a child, will the lives of the entire family be his toys? When everyone supported him in the past, why didn't you say that he was a child? Dad, don't try to persuade me. I've already made up my mind. Lan Shanggu raised his head and said loudly, I'm leaving the Lan clan. What are your conditions? Let me take Dashan Trade away, Lan Shanggu said. Dashan Trade was founded by Lan Shanggu. Previously, it was under the name of the Lan clan's corporation. However, Lan Shanggu held a large number of shares and was also the legal representative of the trading company. Lan Shanggu and Chaoyan Technology, which was represented by Lu Chaoga, were working together. Dashan Trade was helping Chaoyan Technology's Little Flame products to be the sellers. Anything else? Nothing else, Lan Shanggu said. Wow, everyone was in an uproar. The Lan clan was huge and had a few listed companies under their name. As one of the most important figures in the Lan clan, Lan Shanggu's request to leave the clan was only for Dashan Trade. This made the other members of the Lan clan laugh so hard that they couldn't close their mouths. You think so highly of him? I'm willing to take a gamble. Old Master Lan pondered for a long time and said, I'll give Hua Mao to you as well. Thank you, Grandpa, Lan Shanggu said gratefully. Old Master Lan waved his hand and said, Go to the ancestral hall and receive a beating, then get out. Lan Shanggu didn't say anything else. He kowtowed to where Old Master Lan was sitting. When he raised his head, his forehead was dripping with blood. Old Master Lan was nowhere to be seen. You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.